Sword of Coming Chapter 889. Qin Pingan and Ning Yao walked back to the town, where Huaihuang County was not the only place where the superintendent of building and construction department. The two passed by an old-fashioned restaurant. It occupies a small area but has 3 floors. It was once the tallest building in the town. The 3rd floor is not open to the public. Qin Pingan was upset and said to drink inside. He also smiled and said to Ning Yao that in the early years, only the rich in Fulu Street and Taoya Alley would come here to drink, otherwise it was the master Long Yao who collected apprentices here. Do wine. While chatting at the fire temple in the capital, Qin Pingan learned that this restaurant is actually the property of Aunt Feng. The 3rd floor is her resting place. Besides, Aunt Feng also saved a lot of land deeds. She also leaked the secret, saying that most of the kiln openings of the dragon kills that have now been converted into private kills are under the names of old coachmen. The old coachman usually lives in Erlang Lane. As for the Luwei of the Zhongtu Yinyang family, there are many houses in Fulu Street and Taoya Lane. Qin Pingan chose a table by the window and only needed a pot of wine. The jug and bowl are all celadone made locally. Ning Yao just drank a bowl but did not stop Qin Pingan from drinking. In this restaurant there was a rare customer in the early years. Even the nominal hotel shopkeeper didn't take it seriously. But the real owner of the restaurant, Aunt Feng, once sighed faintly. A gentleman with frosty white temples once asked for a pot of wine and a few dishes with wine here, and he could drink and drink for himself. Looking from the window on the 2nd floor of the restaurant, you just happen to be able to see a plaque on the archway on the street. After drinking and eating food, Qin Pingan's face was reddened but his eyes were bright. He stood at the window and looked at the archway building for a moment. After regaining his gaze, he went down to the restaurant with Ning Yao and returned to Luapa Mountain. The westernmost house belonged to Li Huai's family. A few years ago there was a wedding reception here. It was Li Lu who married a scholar from a foreign country. It was said that he was the son of an official and eunuch, and the woman raised her eyebrows fiercely. Don't scold people anymore. At that time women like to hang out the most. Everyone smiles at each other when they meet. Many of them are neighbor enemies who have quarreled or even scratched their faces. Only now the family returned to Beiju Luzhou. Ning Yao was a little curious that Li Lu would marry. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "It seems to be the fate of the past life, cut off the red dust, and then practice peace of mind, enter the ascendant realm, there is no big problem." Ning Yao blinked. Qin Pingan said helplessly, "I don't know either." Ning Yao tilted his head. Qin Pingan said, "I mean I don't know what you are thinking. In fact, there is a secret hidden here which made Dong Shuijing and Lin Shi not give up completely, or that they did not put sack on that bastard. It's just this kind of thing and Qin Pingan is really inappropriate to say it. The truth is probably on Li Liu's side. It's a name but nothing. As for the scholar's side, God knows. Today a table on the Luapa Mountain is full of people. The main seat of the opposite door sitting Qin Pingan and Ning Yao. Zhu Lian, Wei Wenlong and Zhang Jiazhen in charge of the accountant. Miu Xiaoma Xianwei. At the last seat with his back to the door, sitting Qin Lingjun, Millet Grains and Qin Wanshu. Before the old cook was busy at the stove, Wanshu and Xiamiliang both helped choose dishes and blue bamboo tubes, while Xiao Mo was in charge of serving dishes to the table. Seeing Xianwei shook his head, this little Mo really doesn't think of himself as an outsider and he's not an outsider. Soon he will worship old Xianxia and Qin Lingjun as brothers, and only wait for old brother Jia to choose one. On auspicious days, the 3 of them will cut chicken heads and burn yellow paper in Qilong Alley. At the wine table before, Qin Lingjun patted him with pain in his shoulder. No matter what, they are all good brothers. Besides, Qin Lingjun has already slapped his chest and promised that you will wait for you, brother Xianwei, to share the blessings and keep the spicy food. In the future, whenever there are only 3 or 2 dishes on the wine table in the future, even if I, Qin Ling, don't talk about the morals of the world. I have treated my brother badly. As a result, brother Jia slapped the table and suddenly cursed to let your mother ass. Frightened Xianwei most of the time, but it was Qin Lingjun standing on the bench with his hands on his hips, laughing. It turned out to be a false alarm by Xianwei because the old fairy Jia soon came with a few quick words saying, "Brother Qin, you look down on our grass-to-head shop, or do you look down on my cooking skills? No matter how high the wine is, it can't be bragging, it's not comparable to Mr. Zhu on the mountain. It's a must, but in Jia Sheng's level of wine and food, how many chefs in a small restaurant can compare? What? Especially the extremely long, character of old Xianxia, which made Xianwei's heart warm. This is the rivers and lakes and wine bureaus that I am thinking of. As for today it's a bit less interesting but Mr. Zhu's dishes are really delicious. No matter who is not restrained, there is no red tape of toasting each other. You can drink, eat, and there is no such nonsense of not talking and eating. Zhu Lian took a sip of wine and asked with a smile, Brother Xiaoma, Taoist immortal, can you still put down chopsticks? Xianhui lowered his chopsticks like flying, bowed his head and said, to be able to use chopsticks you must be able to. Xiaomo didn't say anything but he held the cup in both hands, raised his head, drank it and then the glass was facing down. Chen Pingyan and Zhu Lian asked in their hearts, why didn't Xin Yuanji come? Is she afraid that there will be too many people and no place? Jianghu was practicing in retreat, but Chen Pingyan didn't let Zhu Lian call someone. Zhu Lian explained with a smile, no, she only has 2 meals every day, morning and evening, and it is medicated diet. If you don't step on it this hour you won't come. Girl, if you are not afraid of the day you must be afraid of being fat. Words. And I said hello to her, she said that she would have to invite Shanju and Mrs. Shanju to dinner alone, thank you. Chen Pingyan couldn't help but laugh after hearing the words, that's because I was exposed. Thinking of something, Chen Pingyan continued to ask in his heart, now how old are the parents of Xin Yuanji, and the 2 elders are in good health? Last time I went back to my hometown, I heard Xiaomi Li said that Xin Yuanji's mother was infected with wind and cold. Zhu Lian said, Dongshan pretended to be a doctor in secret before and was seen by a helper. He was unharmed. Chen Pingyan nodded and said, you still have to pay more attention. Zhu Lian nodded. After a meal, Chen Pingyan asked Nuanshu and Xiaomi Li to lead the way together to visit Pei Qian's house. Chen Pingyan glanced at the cotton shoulder bag of the right guardian, and asked with a smile, where is the big bag of golden melon seeds? Is it too heavy so I didn't take it out? The little girl patted her beloved satchel and explained in a low voice to the owner of the good man, in this accompaniment capital, only a part of the soldiers and horses are stationed in it for the time being, and I will fight in the north and south with me. With the accompanying capital, of course there is also a capital city. Of course, it is the Celadon piggy bank that she, Pei Qian and Nuanshu have. It was given to them by the old cook in the early years. As for the nicknames of the capital and the capital, of course, they are the nicknames that Pei Qian helped to come up with. They are so domineering. This is the first time Chen Pingyan has walked into Pei Qian's house. Of course, this is related to Chen Pingyan's short stay in Luapa Mountain. For nearly 30 years he, the owner of the mountain, has not taken too much of his hand as the shopkeeper. When I arrived at Pei Qian's house, one house was the residence and the other house. It was the study room of this great disciple of the mountain. The study room is not locked. In fact, there are not a few books in it. Leaning against a shelf on the wall, there are a variety of treasures accumulated by Pei Qian's years of travel, placed high and low, and there is no high or low rank. But after listening to the whistleblower of millet grains, the most valuable items are kept in the next room. There are also a few boxes under the bed filled with ledgers and locked, even Sister Nuanshu doesn't have the key. Chen Pingyan took out 3 multi-treasure racks, 1 large and 2 small, from within a few steps. From the materials to the tenon and tenon, it was all done by himself. The small multi-treasure racks can be stored and taken out completely. As for the big one, Chen Pingyan should temporarily as a carpenter, he squatted on the ground to assemble. After he was done, Chen Pingyan patted his palms, turned his head and looked at the table and stool by the window. After putting it on for many years, it was still a small desk and a tall stool. Pei Qian practiced boxing at the Zhulu when he was a child, and when he returned to his residence every day, he would copy books here. Chen Pingyan could not imagine that a little black charcoal who was so afraid of hardship back then would suddenly think of practicing boxing. If she knows, she probably won't have to copy the book, she owes it first and will make up later. Chen Pingyan, with a complicated mood, still feels complicated after leaving Pei Qian's house. Not far from the door there is a small Mo standing. Nuanshu and Xiaomi Li immediately left, each busy. Xiao Mo waved with the 2 little girls, and then asked the question he wanted to ask on the ferry, when will the sun visit Piyun Mountain? Chen Pingyan was stunned and the light was dark. He was really too familiar with Wei Shanjun. Every time he returned to his hometown he never thought of this. Every time Wei Bo took the initiative to visit Luapa Mountain, and Wei Bo didn't think of himself. Be an outsider in the Luapa Mountain. The melon seeds of millet grains Wei Shanjun really knocked. However, it is still inconsistent with etiquette. It is indeed his negligence. Chen Pingyan smiled and said, it's better to have a chance as soon as possible. Let's visit Wei Shanjun now. The 2 went to Piyun Mountain together with Yufeng. Wei Bo appeared on the top of the mountain, a little surprised, and said with a smile, rare. Chen Pingyan is very sad. This is not really true. Xiao Mo bent over and said, I have seen Jun Wei Shan. I saw the mountain monarch in front of me with a slender figure, a handsome appearance, a snow-white robe and a golden ring in his earrings. Floating out of the dust, the style is outstanding. Weibo is a mountain monarch after all. He already knows that this young monk of unknown origin, named Shizhu, is a new offering from Luopishan, and has become a third-class offering from the penal department of Dali. Wei Biao smiled and held his fists in return. He said without taboo, "I have seen fellow Dao Shizhu." Without a word, Xiao Mo directly drew out 2 meeting gifts from his sleeves. They were a pair of pocket-sized and lovely mountain treasures, a sapphire axe and a topaz. According to what Howren now says, they are all semi-fairy ranks. But for Xiao Mo they are just dispensable chicken ribs. Who is not sending? Is it possible to exchange it for money? Can still only be regarded as a polite and affectionate icing on the cake. After all, is a Xiaoma who even described his 2 natal flying swords as fancy and impractical. Wei Mo originally wanted to decline because of his relationship with Luopishan. He didn't need to be so dismissive. Moreover, Mr. Wei Dashan mistakenly thought it was at most 2 magic treasures to meet each other. It's just that Xiao Mo is extremely persistent, saying that Wei Shanjun and his son are inexorable acquaintances who have met at the end of the day. After so many years they have been taking care of the mountain. If you do not accept this thin gift, it will be too unfavorable. Then there will be a banquet in Piyun Mountain in the future, because he is willing to invite him, Xiao Mo, to be a guest and will never come. Wei Mo was stunned. It is really a downhill mountain. Such a gentle person is rare. There are not many. To be precise, it seems that there are only 2 cute girls, Nuanshu and Millet. But if Xiao Mo knows the rank of the gift, will Wei Bo accept it? It's been safe. Qin Pingan couldn't stop even trying to stop it. How can you really be a mountain monarch rich? Those landscape mansions, especially the few fairy houses in Zhongyue Jinqing, write on the paper and they like innuendo. It is said that people on Aquarius Mountain are starting to bet on when will Piyun Mountain hold the next night banquet. Qin Pingan didn't even use his heartfelt words and said straightforwardly, Xiao Mo is a sword repairman. He is at the peak of the Ascension realm. In fact, he comes from the wild world. The place of cultivation is in the bright moon and bright moon. He slept for thousands of years. Ning Yao and I, as well as the Saint of Rites, returned to the world together. Wei Shanjun just raised that arm. He was going to take the gift from the Xiao Mo, but he froze over there. A peak sword repairman in the Ascension realm? Isn't equivalent to an old throne in the wild world. Qin Pingan took advantage of Wei Bo to be in a daze, and asked in his heart, Xiao Mo, what kind of rank? Xiao Mo answered honestly, half-fairy soldier. Wei Bo was just about to bite the bullet and accept the gift. Qin Pingan immediately grabbed Wei Shanjun's arm with one hand, and pressed Xiao Mo's wrist with the other, complaining, It's all my family, you're blind, Xiao Mo, who are you? Wei Shanjun put it away. Wei Bo smiled and said, Xiao Mo, Qin Pingan is reasonable. They are all in the family. If you are polite with you, I will accept the gift. Just let me say a word of politeness and thank you. The next night banquet, how could it be possible that there is no brother Xiao Mo, and a special night banquet will be held for Xiao Mo? It's all right. Qin Shanju is not like this. Wei Shanjun still has no score in his heart. The more Qin Pingan is like this, the more Wei Bo knows that he does not accept gifts and must regret his intestines. Shameless? If Lao Tzu wants to show his face, can he host so many night banquets? The street with bad reputation has arrived at Beiju Luzhou. How did Lu Jinglong's wine table invincible come out? How did the first night banquet in Piyun Mountain come from? Qin Pingan looked towards Wei Shanjun. Will there be too many 2 pieces? How about 1 piece? Wei Bo looked towards Qin Shanju. Bro. Qin Shanju still has a firm vision. I finally bought the bamboo from Mrs. Kingshanshan for real money? I gave it to Piyun Mountain for nothing? Wei Shanjun responded with a sneer. 1 yard is 1 yard. I and Daoist Shizhu just see each other. If you have a face to stop it, I have a face to accept it. 2 neighbors, silence is better than sound at this time. Qin Pingan felt that he was inferior to others, so he had to put his hands away, put his hands in his sleeves and smiled. Xiao Mo, we can wait for the invitation to the night party. After all, the opportunity is rare and it is not often encountered good thing. Wei Bo put the green jade axe and topaz axe in his sleeve, smiled and said, Drink or drink tea, listen to you. Qin Pingan smiled and asked, If you drink the mountain water and luck, you won't be successful? Wei Mo waved his sleeves, whatever you want. Xiao Mo feels that his son and Wei Shanjun are indeed deeply emotional, and it seems that the gift has not been given in vain. What is it in Piyun Mountain? Colorful clouds and green trees, pavilions and lofts on the ridge. What's going on in the mountains today? Meet friends, Songhua brews wine, spring water sencha. The Songhua wine brewed by Wei Shanjun himself is a must. It's just that the reputation is not as big as Changchun Gongjianyo. Speaking of which, at the boundary of Beiyue, who would dare to drink Songhua wine from Piyun Mountain easily? Only after attending a night banquet can I have a chance to drink a pot. The most expensive Xinjia wine in the world, in addition to the Qingshan Mountain in Zhuhai Dongtian, is the Piyun Mountain in Aquarius. The spring water is a unique jasper spring in Piyun Mountain, one of the famous springs in Aquarius. In fact, the comment on the spring water comes from the handwriting of Dong Shuijing, a Mahist creditor. Because the 3 springs on the list were all rounded up by him. Tea is the new tea sent by the little warm tree before and after the rain this year. Several old wild tea plants from Kaiyunfeng are picked by the warm tree and then hand-fried by the old cook. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Let me turn my back to the master once and he'll make tea." After took a seat, she shook the sleeves of her blue shirt and used fire and water methods. Cooking tea is a pleasure to watch. Weibo squinted his eyes and smiled. The strawshoe teenager in the past is so celestial. Returned to Luapa Mountain from Piyun Mountain. Ningyao lived in the house on the side of Xuanhuan Shu tonight. Xiaomi Li often rubbed the bed with Sister Nuan Shu, so he followed. Anyway, there are so many quilts over there. Qin Pingan sat on the first floor of the bamboo building and read a book. In the middle of the night, he went to the ancestral house in Nipping Lane, lit a lamp and sat all night without feeling lonely. In the early morning of the next day after returning to Luapa Mountain, Qin Pingan and Ning Yao went to worship the sword platform again. Yu Yu, the sword repairman of Luxiazu, is the guest of the Xia family of Miyun Aizhao. Lao Jianxia was embarrassed to see the mountain master, so he immediately set off on the road. Otherwise, the 2 apprentices would be abducted by him. Lao Jianxia ran away early, and if he didn't know how to run away so that someone could not see or bother him, Yu Yu would have to worry about being asked by the sword fairy Midajian. When Yu Yu saw Qin Pingan, he knew what Lord Hermit meant and he became more relieved. Qin Pingan joked, "Don't think him driving people away. How dare you?" Yu Yu smiled and said, "My Lord Hidden Officer, let me you not be angry. I have called him Mi Jianxian deliberately these days on the mountain. Although I am useless on the Great Wall of Jianqi, I still know the customs there. Yes, I saw my old friend Pu He, who was also a boastful talk at the wine table. Ah, do you dare to call me you like that? I dare, and I still call me Jianxian every time I meet." To say that Yu Yu is not flustered at all, it is self-deception. Fortunately, every time Mayu's eyes are not good, it is not true. Yu Yu restrained his smile and continued, "Thank you again, Lord Hidden Officer, help me give me a word to Mi Jianxian. Yu Yu respects me you in his heart and is true." Qin Pingan nodded and promised and asked with a smile, "Why don't you go to Miyu and say it in person? Yu Yu is a straightforward person." He laughed and said, "Before I owed my mouth, Mi Jianxian shouted too much and I yelled at him Miyu. Besides, I am also worried that this kind of sincerity will not be taken seriously by Miyu. From the hidden official, Miyu am sure am willing to believe that I don't lose money but I still earn money." Qin Pingan nodded and turned to look at the 2 children who were afraid to look at Ning Yao. Qin Pingan took out 2 prepared small bags from his sleeves, handed them to Yu Qingzhang and He Xiangding and explained with a smile. 300 snowflake coins, I have converted them into 3 small summer coins. This is Master Luapa Shan. According to Tang's rule, the direct disciples will have this money when they travel far away. You haven't formally followed Yu Jianxian to learn art, and I haven't crossed out the name on the Ji-Sifeng ancestor spectrum, so this rule cannot be broken. Yu Qingzhang and He Xiangding each took the light money bags, but it made them feel a little heavy. He Xiangding, a child who likes to read, said courageously, "His secret officer, we are not sensible anymore." Yu Qingzhang held back for a long time and said dully, "Sir, Hidden Officer, I'm sorry." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Don't think about it this way. It's not a matter of great right or wrong. When you practice on the mountain you must pay attention to your own conditions. There are some things that I have to do when I am in that position. You are in your own situation. Now that we are going to be separated, I'll just tell you something in my heart. If you don't think that way and don't alienate me, I, the Hidden Officer, will feel that something is wrong and I will underestimate you." All the children in the world probably grew up along with the truth. Qin Pingan took out another stack of books. At the top, there was a copy of Swordsmanship Strict, which was copied by Qin Pingan. There are also several sage books and literates notes bought from Dali Capital Bookstore. Together with He Xiangding, who likes to read, Qin Pingan said, "You'd better read this swordsmanship carefully. As for the rest of the books, it doesn't matter if you don't read it." He Xiangding took the book, and solemnly thanked the hidden officer of the Great Wall of Jiangxi and Mr. Chen of the Fallen Mountain. Qingzhang wanted to speak but stopped, scratching his head. Qin Pingan joked, "I'm sorry now, it's still too late." The two children grinned. This was probably the first time they showed a smile on the side of a young hidden official, and they were sincere. Worshipping a good master, it is even more important to practice well. Even in the Great Wall of Sword Qi, not every young sword repairer can get as senior in the Jade Pu realm as that master and be preached carefully. Qin Pingan stretched out his hand and gently pressed the heads of the two children. Cultivation is for a better life, but life is not only about cultivation. This truth can be temporarily ignored. Two children focus on their heads. Qin Pingan retracted his hand and said in his heart, "Wuxia, say a few more words, you must be more strict in the future. You can't just focus on their practice and breaking through. It's not that you have to be more reprimanded, but you must pay attention to all aspects. It's a matter of practice no matter how big it is, it's no better than being a human being. It is said that the rich family loves their children, the first thing must be sufficient wealth, elders love, it is human nature, but if it is spoiled, it is easy to develop arrogance. Young and arrogant, how can you become a virtuous?" Especially Qingzhang and Xianxia were born in poverty. They suddenly changed their growth environment, and their lives suddenly became rich, so we should pay more attention to this matter. Those of us who are masters, preachers, preach by example and teach by example are more precious than giving 1 or 2 books. Cheats are more important. In comparison, the person who does not need to find money on his own is the sword repairer. Some ordinary trivial matters, when you are an elder, you must not do it for you. Some essential family teaching etiquette must be taught repeatedly. Since you are already a sword repairman, you must cherish this blessing and let the children develop the habit of ignoring the lives of others. Although Qingzhang and Xianxia are good friends, they have very different personalities. Let Qingzhang follow you for thousands of miles, read more books, broaden your eyes and broaden your mind. Read more about the trivial things around you. You can't study hard, you are constrained by reason into a rigid temperament, and you must apply what you have learned. It's me who made a fuss. Qin Pingan laughed at himself, apologized a little and said nothing more. After all, Yu is now the nominal master of the two children. Is actually not suitable. Fortunately, Yu is not a small-minded senior, otherwise based on these words, it is estimated that he will be a bit grudge. Yu sincerely sighed, "My lord hermit, where is this shit, swordsmanship and Taoism?" Thinking about the Mandarin duck meeting for the first time, this young hidden official, how confident and energetic. But at the time of parting today, the young hidden official's heartfelt words made Yu realize that the young sword fairy in front of him was actually a closed disciple of Wensheng's lineage, a little master who had read sages and sages. "I have only one thing, not to say any kind words to worship." Qin Pingan continued, "You must not let the two children be outside. It is clear that they are in control, but who is being bullied? There is no human affection and care about the overall situation. After all, sword repair is sword repair and sword repair must be sword repair. I will never allow the children who have left their hometowns from the Great Wall of Jiangxi. Their dispositions, behaviors, one by one become. The world is so vast, not at all like the sword repairs of the Great Wall of Jiangxi. If one day I find that it has become like this for worship, I'm sorry then. I will teach it." Old Jianxiu said in a deep voice, "Luxiaza Jianxiu, you will never let Mr. Chen so disappointed." Different from Qin Pingan's careful thought. Ning Yao is still her consistent style. Taking advantage of Qin Pingan and Yu's heartfelt words, she has some words to teach the two children from hometown, and she is still too lazy to say words. Qingzhang, your aptitude for sword training is only acceptable. You have to know what the material is, and you have to be diligent in practicing. Don't forget your roots when you reach the Haoran world. Don't come to that set of things that compares the advantages and disadvantages. Remember to read more books, use your brains when encountering things and learn more about your hidden officials. Xianxia, don't be pulled too far by Qingzhang. Within the time of Jiazi, at most 1.5 levels of difference are allowed. You can't fall in this breath. Take a step back and say that sword practice can be slow, and you can't be a man. Regular and clear swordsmanship means clear swordsmanship. Ning Yao looked indifferent and said, "You too, please remember each word for me clearly." Qingzhang and Xianxia unanimously trembled. Remember. Some secrets and inside stories of the colorful world, that big white goose has already said. A brand new world in history, the first Jade Realm, Fairy Realm and Ascension Realm. The sword slashes the high gods. Walking far away with the sword alone, asking about the sword, severely injured Deus's closed disciple. Now the number one person in the colorful world. For the 9 sword fairy embryos, it is not strange there is only one mind. Ningyao really is Ningyao. No one can find a sword repairer, even if it's just like Ningyao in the world. Yu listened. The old man was actually not much better than the 2 children. After listening to the old Jianxiu, there is only one emotion at the moment. Sir Hidden Officer is amazing. Ningyao held a fist and said, I have worked hard for the old man. Yu hurriedly bowed his hands back. Don't dare to be. Chen Pingan came out of the Fuzhou and sent the 3 masters and apprentices to Nujiadu. There is no direct ferry to Iazhao in Aquarius Island, and we need to wait for an intercontinental ferry to Luzhou in Beiju. At the ferry has not yet entered the boundary of Longzhou. I chatted with Lao Jianxiu for about 2/4 of an hour. Chen Pingan asked about the customs of Luxiazu and Iazhao. Yu naturally knew everything he could say. It's funny, it's a pity that Lao Jianxiu doesn't become a storyteller. After the 3 of Yu boarded the ferry, Chen Pingan and Ningyao stood near the railing and waved goodbye. Xiao Mo found Zhu Lian, the housekeeper, and said that he wanted to build a book building. The worship of Luapa Mountain and Keqing, near the bamboo tower in Shenshan, will have their own houses. In fact, there is not much left. Enshrining Xiaomao and Xianwei Keqing, who went up the mountain together, there are just 2 idle houses, otherwise they really can only move to the back mountain. With the style of Luapa Mountain, it will never be, because Xiaoma is an ascendant realm, and the Immortal Way has a great background. This kind of thing makes an exception for them. And the Immortal family mansion on the back side of the mountain is endless. There are more than 30 large and small, all of which were invested by Chief Zhou in his early years. In the future they will be used to let new disciples settle down or entertain guests, but they are now downcast. The number of disciples of the mountain's genealogy is still small, and the mountain owner has spoken again, making the current Luapa Mountain look like a mountain for 20 years, so except for a house where 2 people live, the rest are temporarily empty. When Xiao Mo found Zhu Lian, the old cook was weaving baskets in the yard. He heard that Xiao Mo had to pay for the building of the bookstore. He smiled and said that it was okay. The craftsmen on the mountain on the Huiming Mountain were all ready-made hands and craftsmanship. Yes, not bad for a bookstore. The only problem is that there is really no land near the bamboo building, so Xiaomao now has 3 choices: build it near Jisa Peak or build it on the back mountain. Otherwise he would simply choose a vassal mountain as his own path of cultivation. The ground may be more refreshing. Xiaomao said that it shouldn't be so troublesome. If the mountain rules are not violated, he can tear down his house and build a book building on the original site. He can use the book building as a monastic mansion, and the book building only needs to be 2 stories high. Julien thought for a while and said that if Brother Xiaomao can trust him, he can build the book building. But it takes some working hours and there is no need to send money to outsiders. Xiaomao was surprised and quickly got up and thanked him. Because his son mentioned Luopashan, he highly respected Mr. Zhu's erudition and versatility. He gave him a high evaluation, without the craftsmanship that Julien can't, even if not at the moment. At most 3 or 2 years will be given to Julien, and he will be a well-deserved master in this business, and he will not be able to be convinced. The reason why I can travel far away with peace of mind is Julien, the great steward, who has done a great job. Julien smiled and asked, Xiaomao, does the bookstore have a name? Xiaomao said, 2 Lost Buildings. Good name. Julien hummed, it's up to the level of our son's name. Xiaomao smiled and said, it's the name that the son helped to choose. Zhu lied, turned his head and said to Xiaomao sternly, the naming is usually not easy for the young man. After so many years there are only a few times. It is clear that the young man's blue eyes for Xiaomao add up. Xiaomao smiled and raised his eyes. Julien smiled and said, envy and envy. The book building like me has no name yet. I once asked the son for calligraphy but it won't work. Xiaomao inevitably has some doubts. Given the affection between Mr. Zhu and his son, why is it so? It's just said in the book. When you are in a happy state, don't talk about the happy things with the frustrated people. After all, Xiaomao has just gone up the mountain. He doesn't know some inside stories and temporarily doesn't know the mystery of the book building. If Chen Ping helped to name it, there would be a ghost. So Xiaomao just changed the subject and asked, if I stay here will I delay Mr. Zhu's business? Julien smiled and said, in terms of work it's hard to talk about business and bad things. Xiaomao, you stay the best. I can still have a companion to talk to, like drinking alcohol with a beloved one. Xiaomao took out a book of graceful words from his sleeve, and sat aside to read the book. During the busy period, Zhu Lian glanced at the content on the top of the CI collection, smiled and shook his head and said, "When 100 flowers bloom, you most think of you, and you hate you when 100 flowers die?" This statement is so bad that it falls into the stereotype. When 100 flowers bloom, the most resentful monarch, and the most reminiscences when 100 flowers are gone. Regardless of thoughts and grievances, they are always in the 100 flowers. Can be said to have a deep affection, a long-term grievance, dare not to hate, can only complain, and the woman is full of grief and pain. Xiaomo was speechless, and then he was convinced, turned around and clasped his fist, saying, "Mr. Zhu's witty remarks, like a graceful lady coming from the picture scroll, without flowers fragrant." Zhu Lian laughed and said, "Brother Xiaomo is not bad." Xiaomo decided a little bit. He and Luopishan seem to fit the Taoist heart naturally, and there is no need to deliberately go to the countryside to follow the customs. Xiaoma comes to Luopa Mountain and there is Xiaoma in Luopa Mountain. It is a lucky thing. Zhu Lian skillfully weaves bamboo baskets and said casually, "The kindness of the strong is a gentle spring breeze." Xiaomo closed the book and just about to talk ran in a young Taoist priest who had just gone to the gate of the mountain, blushing and shouting, "Xiaomo, Xiaomo, it's incredible. It turns out that this is Luopa Mountain. The ferry boat is drifting away like a bird in the sky. The 9 children Shinpingan brought back from the Great Wall of Sword Chi have their own belongings. They no longer just stay on the side of the sword stand and practice swordsmanship, they all have a real future." Cheng Chaolu, the little cook, became Sui right-hand biography. Xiaokai Fan Nalan Jade Card, and Zhang Lv live a long-term apprenticeship. Yu Qingzhang and He Xiangding have already followed the old Jinshu Yue to cross the continent, first to the Myunxia clan of Iazhao, and then they will take their 2 children to travel along Luxiazu to catch the autumn breeze. For use words, it is that the Myunxia family had to laugh and bloom, soaking in his own light. It was equal to the 2 sword fairy embryos of the Great Wall of Sword Chi without the slightest incense, and the fairy money and the treasures of heaven and earth were less. Igu finally recognized Miyu as his master. Is actually a matter of Ningyao. What face do you look down on Miyu? His Miyu was in the Golden Core in Yuan Ying's Earth Immortal Realms, summing up his demon-killing exploits, ranking first, even more than half of the Jade Pure Realm sword repairs. At that time, Miyu was standing not far away with Chen Pingan. Although Ningyao told the truth, Miyu was still panicked. If the child Higu was reluctant at first, but could recognize Miyu as a master by pinching his nose, then Yu Shehui would be unwilling to follow Chui Wei, this traitor, to learn the sword. Even at that time, Chui Wei wanted to take the child on the Fengyuan ferry boat to Tangyi's house. Yu slanted back and did not want to leave the worship platform. He was anxious. At that time he said a few very heavy words to Chui Wei. "Yu Chui Wei is still Nalan. Nocturnal disciples, the master is dead, so many people are dead, so many Jindan Gensho who can leave are dead. You are the only one who hides in a foreign land, can't make a single sword, and live the best, don't you lose heart? Replaced by me. If I don't die in my hometown, I will die on a battlefield like Old Dragon City. Let me recognize you as a master? Don't even think about killing me. I feel embarrassed to be your master." Chui Wei, the nascent Soul Realm sword repairman, didn't say anything at the time, but left the worship platform silently without saying a word. Ningyao's reason is very simple. She did not say whether Chui Wei's choice was right or wrong, nor did she say whether Yu Zaihui's persistence was good or bad, but asked Yu Xie to go back to prove it by herself. You learn Chui Wei's swordsmanship first, and then you don't have to worry about the master and apprenticeship on the mountain. The 2 sides will ask the sword a game and decide the winner. Let Chui Wei admit his mistake in that matter by his own ability. Sun Chunhuang better discuss. Ningyao let the little girl at Most Jiazi into the Yupu realm, can become his own named disciple. As for Bai Xian, he received a pause. Be serious about practice. Your qualifications are only considered good in the Howran world. You will die in your hometown. Is Miyu before Yupu realm, but he has the face to say that he doesn't need to practice sword? When you are Zhong Yuan or Chen Shi, only the soft-tempered Yao Xiaoyan, Ningyao didn't say anything serious, just made the little girl bolder. Before, at the sword platform there, the 8 children faced Ningyao one by one, stunned and at a loss. This may be the strength of Ningyao. She doesn't need to care too much, and she doesn't even bother to sow people's hearts. But the kid from the Great Wall of Jianqi faces Ningyao. In fact, it was like the later great sword immortals such as Yu Qing, Mi Hu, and Li Tumi in the early years when they were children. They faced the elder sword immortal. It is rare to speak, curse a few words, it is some rescue, which shows that the qualifications of swordsmanship are still improvised. In fact, Ningyao didn't even think about saying so much at first. Just as soon as they arrived at the Baijiantai, they heard that the two children were leaving Luapa Mountain, and they seemed to be angry with Qin Pingan, so Ningyao was so angry. As a result, out of the 9 children, only 2 sword fairy embryos are left, and the ancestors are not yet clear. Bai Xian and Yao Xiaoyan. So Qin Pingan intends to ask Xiao Mo if he likes Bai Xian and is willing to accept him as an anonymous disciple for the time being. Let the white-haired boy who changed his name to Huang Ho be willing to teach Yao Xiaoyan some superior swordsmanship. It's just that everything can be done, Taoist companions or masters and apprentices will not be allowed. Standing on the side of the ferry, Ningyao hesitated to speak, but she rarely hesitated. Qin Pingan stretched out his sleeves, held Ningyao's hands and chuckled softly, "When I arrive at Feishing City, help me greet my colleagues in the Summer Palace, especially Guizhuzhou who is calling your wife, just say her. Master and sister miss her very much." Ningyao nodded. Today's Qin Pingan is in a miserable situation, which makes her feel a little uneasy. No matter how high Xiaomo's swordsmanship is and no matter how loyal he is, he will fall in love with Qin Pingan. But after all, it's better to stay by his side. Qin Pingan raised a hand and gently rubbed Ningyao's brows, apologizing, "You are far from the great sword immortal. Don't worry." Ningyao still just nodded and didn't speak. Flying City took root in Wuxia Tian. I, a hermit, were not present and I didn't congratulate him. It's too shameful. Qin Pingan put away his hand, twisted his wrist, and there was an extra whisk from Xiandan City whose name was Whisk. Ningyao shook his head. "You are not an outsider, congratulations." Qin Pingan has his own reasons. "It's not the same, this is what I grabbed from the fairy hairpin city. It's very different from ordinary objects. It's the most suitable to put it in Feishing City. Who will let fairy hairpin city dare to follow the sword? The Great Wall is higher than the Qi." Ningyao said, "I am waiting for you in Feishing Cheng." Qin Pingan nodded and said, "Okay." The woman in front of her is still very different from when she was a girl, but it is the best anyway. Qin Pingan took a deep breath. "I will send you off." The two of them turned into blue and white long rainbows, their sword aura rushed into the sky, and they instantly moved away from the ferry. The sage of the Confucian temple sitting on the Ao Ping Zhou Tianmu opened the door to the colorful world. Really want to enter the colorful world? Ningyao still has a long way to go, but the road is stable like an official post road in the world. After the gate was closed, the old master stood on the white cloud and smiled and said, "Since you don't want to give up, why not stay?" Qin Pingan smiled and said nothing, but bid farewell to the sage of the Confucian temple. Return to Luapa Mountain. Qin Pingan has hung the Night You sword on the wall of the first floor of the bamboo building, adjoining the couplet. Glanced at the sheath-long sword on the wall. The world is not smooth and the dragons and snakes are flying on the wall. There are 2 imprints on the desk which are well-deserved initials. Is the Yinpu of the 100 Swords immortal and the Yinpu of the Jianxian? Fatty Yen wanted to buy it back then but he didn't give it. The price can be discussed, don't think about it. So Yanzhua almost wanted to take advantage of Qin Pingan's staying in the Summer Palace to become the hermit official, and ran to Ningfu to become a gentleman of Liangshan. Qin Pingan walked out of the bamboo building. The small pond behind where a purple nasturtium was once planted has been moved to the lotus flower-blessed land. Looking at the empty waterless pond, I remembered a Buddhist saying for no reason. Like a lotus flower that does not touch the water, it is like the sun and the moon do not stay in the air. A person who cultivates the Tao lives in the mountains. The so-called true Taoism is probably a pair of eyes like the sun and the moon, and a Taoist heart like a green lotus. Leave the small pond and go to the stone table beside the cliff. Between the bamboo building and the stone table beside the cliff, there are cyan stone bricks. You can walk in 6 steps here. Was laid with student Chui Dongshan before, but Qin Pingan didn't know what text Chui Dongshan had engraved on the bottom of the blue brick. Before, I heard from the old cook that Wei Xian had accepted a diary as a major disciple, a little girl who was only 9 years old and a lonely child, but she was already 5 years old as a cultivator. Is a disciple picked up by Wei Xian from the small elementary school under the vassal. An orphan who started practicing at the age of 4? The first time the master and apprentice met, Wei Xian was drinking at a wine shop beside a post road. He only needed a bowl, otherwise the drinking would make a mistake. Then Wei Xian saw a girl in rags. She was thin and yellow, but her eyes were different from ordinary people. When she walked, she breathed and walked calmly. The girl took out a few coins from her pocket. Shuman Shulu bought 2 bowls of inferior wine with the shopkeeper of the wine shop, and then did not choose to sit at the empty wine table. The girl just squatted on the side of the road drinking, holding a bowl and drinking a bowl. After drinking the 2 bowls, stack them and return them to the shopkeeper. From buying wine to returning the bowl, the little girl was speechless from beginning to end, counting the time and foot strength in the twilight before the night ban silently returned to the county. Wei Xian saw that the shopkeeper didn't seem to be surprised at all. He should have known it, so he inquired about it and found out that this girl who had learned to drink at a young age turned out to be a frequent visitor to the wine shop. He heard the shopkeeper say that the little girl homeless, it seems that he was a refugee who had separated from his parents in his early years. The Dali dynasty, which served as the suzerain country a few years ago, allowed each vassal to restore the country with merit. In fact, the common people did not matter. The result was really bad. It is said that he was the crown prince, and the rejuvenation became the emperor. Several brothers must fight with him sitting on that dragon chair. The army was in turmoil. Who can imagine now a little further away, some neighboring countries that are said to have few young and strong men left after the war are all stable. I never thought that they hadn't suffered much here earlier, but just fought a battle on the border. Although many frontier soldiers have died, they have kept a peaceful world within the border, and the world has turned into chaos instead. Orphaned. How did you survive these years? Who cares? The new graves are vast, but in fact they are considered good. For example, the ones that were taken in by the Yizhuang still have a sleeping place. As for those lonely and wild ghosts, no matter how they died, when they are ghosts, they still can't eat for their children and grandchildren. Starving ghosts. But the little girl doesn't look thin, she has a lot of strength, and she would work some part-time jobs in the county at first, and finally settled down in a shop selling incense and paper money. As soon as she was free, she would wander around inside and outside the county seat, presumably looking for her parents, walk as far as the post station, and wait until it gets dark and then go back to the shop inside the county seat. It's just that the shopkeeper thinks that her business is too bad, so she is only allowed to buy wine, and she is not allowed to sit at the wine table. The little girl didn't say anything, every time it was so well regulated. Wei Xian fell in love after listening. Going to the incense candle shop to accept apprentices went smoothly. Wei Xian didn't have any money, and only agreed to help her find the parents who had been lost for many years. It turned out that when she was 4 years old, the child's father and mother found a deserted and dilapidated tomb with an opening like the mouth of a well. Her father and mother felt that the family would definitely not be able to survive, and did not want the little girl to starve to death on the road. Reduced to beast food, the bones will be exposed in the wilderness, so he will be cruel, put her in the tomb with a basket and leave all the food left on her body. The little girl stayed alone in the tomb. After a few years, instead of dying in the tomb, she left the large tomb like a child, crawling back from the ghost gate to the sun. The reason why she did not starve to death is that she did not conceal anything from Wei Xian, who had recognized her master. She only said that when she was about to starve to death, she saw a large turtle in the tomb. When the moonlight leaked, she would crane its neck. She seemed to be breathing just slower. She followed and learned to be less hungry. Qin Pingan was stunned. Is both bitter and shocking. To talk about strange people and strange things, Qin Pingan is really not uncommon, so that seeing the so-called miracle on the mountain has long been a surprise. But such a thing really made Qin Pingan a little shocked. This disciple of Wei Xian must meet. There is no enlightenment from a master, no cheats of the fairy family, no treasures of heaven and earth, and the little girl is still illiterate, so she just took a few glances at the legendary tortoise breath technique and embarked on the path of cultivation. This is not a genius, what is it? According to Zhu Lian's statement, it is estimated that Luopishan can accept such a genius who has passed down his disciple generation. It is estimated that half of it is due to Wei Xian's fate of mentoring and apprenticeship, and half to Luopishan's benefits. Pausing for a moment by the cliff, Qin Pingan returned to the bamboo house residence, picked up the 2 prints and was ready to travel. Compared with the past, this trip is not far away, it is very close. I just went to a small country east of Beipingzu, a small martial arts hall in Xianyu County, Qingyuan County, just to find friends to drink. A young Taoist who can still be young, a hero who is no longer a big man and no longer travels far away. The old man is old. Qin Pingan hangs double knives on his waist, stacking them on one side. Is the 2 narrow knives, execution and investigation. Qin Pingan did not go directly to Yufeng but called Xiaoma, and the 2 went to the gate of the mountain on foot. It is rare for Tsin Yuanji to practice boxing today. Millet grains are watching the door over there, sitting on the bamboo chair. As if secretly holding something in the palm of his hand, he put his palms together and spread out all of a sudden. Self-care and cheerfulness. Xiao Mo, with a yellow hat and blue shoes, now has a bamboo box and a hiking stick in his hand. Qin Pingan was worried that Mi Li would think too much and promised again, "It won't take long for Xiao Mo and I to go home this time." Xiao Mi Li nodded vigorously with a small face with a sentence written, "What a good person Mountain Lord said must count." Qin Pingan touched the head of the millet grains, counting and counting. Xiao Mi Li was relieved and said to Xiao Mo, "Mr. Xiao Mo very scholarly." Xiao Mo squatted down, knelt down on one knee just looking at the millet grain and smiled, "Right guardian, is there anything you want me to carry with you? My son's mountain top is full of weather." For Xiao Mo it's actually okay, no need to be surprised. I just didn't expect to see young girls like Xiao Mi Li and Xuanhuan Shu. One is the right guardian of Luapa Mountain, the so-called guardian worship in the world. One is in charge of all the keys of Ji Sifeng Patriarch Hall. Xiao Mi Li quickly waved his hand, "What the hell, Mr. Xiao Mo must not spend any more money for me." The mere response to the gift has already made Xiao Mi's brains not enough, so I had to ask Nuanshu's sister, Jing Qing, and the old cook. Xiao Mo looked gentle, "I am not short of money." Xiao Mi Li shook his head and said, "That's also money. It's not easy for anyone to make money. Alas, she is not proud when she is older and taller." Yao thinks that back then on the side of Dumb Lake in her hometown, she never regarded money as money, and the good person Mountain Lord can help testify. Since then Qin Pingan has been practicing the sword light escape technique. Once he loses his energy he will turn into a more familiar and relaxed Yinshui body, but the speed of the wind will slow down a lot. Once exhausted he will sacrifice the talisman. Boat or let Xiaoma hold his shoulders and drag him for a long journey. The former is for spending money to see the scenery while the latter is purely on the road, driving fast. Xiaowugwan in Xianyu County, Qingyuan County. There is a hero Su who will lose every boxing. Helped two friends who had met in the rivers and lakes in their early years. They both left a room and kept it clean personally year after year. Also said that when it comes to drinking, there are only 2 people each time. It's not good. You have to make a pile of 3 and he has to pick 2. Su Yuangxia's disciple, Guochuanxi, suffered a love injury and became a drunkard who soaked in a wine jar all day long and sleepwalking. He just fell in love with Zhou Fei before and left his hometown for a trip. Now he has become a disciple of the second seat of the Zenzhenzong to worship Li Fui. From a martial arts disciple who was eating and waiting to die, he began to climb the mountain. Every 6 months, Guochuanxi would send a letter back to tell his master that he was safe. The child of Bai Xian who came here with Qin Pingan last time, Bian Pai Lai Lian asked the martial arts gym for the title of guest. Su Yuanxia didn't take it seriously, and she treated it as a kid's joke and agreed. There are also darts who earn money and make a living at the martial arts hall. The concierge of the martial arts hall is still the young man whom the chicken and duck talked about last time, and is Guochungsa's disciple. I saw Qin Pingan and recognized that it was the friend of the patron of the museum. The young man did not block the way like last time. He only said that the owner is now walking darts, and there are still about 2 days before he can return to Xianyu County. Qin Pingan asked the young man about the route of darts, looked for a quiet place in the street and alley, used the water and cloud body, and went to the convoy of the martial arts hall. Hidden body Yufeng traveled far away, over an ordinary ferry. Qin Pingan looked down and stopped. In late autumn, most of the weather is declining, but near the ferry on the ground the year is good, orange, yellow, orange and green. Xiao Mo glanced around, saw the truth and asked curiously, "According to the mountain, it is the strange mountain and water who clings to the nobleman, wading through the mountains and waiting, so as to avoid the calamity of cultivation?" Qin Pingan nodded, "It's almost the same. A number of ghosts and spirits who are successful in cultivation, in order to avoid the will of the sword and soldiers in certain mountains, they will look for blessed people as refuges. Otherwise, inside the big and small cities, there is the Wenwu Temple and the City God Temple. Outside, there are still landscape gods just like the grass bandits in the mountains. How dare you sway the market? However, these are the knowledge that the calamity has come, the catastrophe is imminent, and as a last resort you must find an amulet. Some are doing business and earning the way because every time you pass a mountain and water realm guarded by gods, ghosts and mountain spirits, you can add an invisible Dao Qi to yourself, as if you were carrying an ethereal body. Clearing the customs, an extra seal was stamped out of thin air. It's just this, and it's by no means an easy task. In some places, the gods of mountains and rivers are not good at things, so they missed it. But once they were spotted by certain mountain gods, daffodils, temples and daffodils, it was tantamount to provocation. Often the end will not be any better. Qin Pingan stopped and looked down at the ferry, just to determine whether that ghost is seeking life or profit. If it's the latter, it's really doomed. Because of the ghosts on the ferry crossing, it's still not clear at this time. The Xuanhuan temple on the other side of the county city has already noticed its traces, and will soon come to the ferry to ask the teacher. Meeting is the master of the city who came here in person, accompanied by a day travel who had just returned to the county city to report the matter, and a general in shackles. And by the ferry, a he-bo was already waiting on the shore. At the ferry at noon the sun was shining, and a woman walked under an umbrella, stepping on a pair of embroidered shoes, and closely following a scholar who entered Beijing for an exam, intentionally or unconsciously, just hiding in the shadow of a scholar. The scholar must have a reputation for jury, because he has the running script issued by the Ministry of Ritual of that country, so he bears a trace of cultural fate that is far away from the capital. Xiaomo said, "The sun, the ghost girl with the umbrella, is worried about whether she will implicate the scholar, and also wondering how to make up for the scholar's loss of yang energy if he escapes by chance, and is thinking about finding a chance to shelter him. The descendants of the city for 100 years. Qin Pingan smiled knowingly with Xiaomo by his side, which can indeed save a lot of things. Little Imo, I have to blame you. I'm used to traveling together. What should I do in the future? It is difficult to change from extravagance to frugality. Xiaomo said, as long as the sun is not annoying and doesn't rush people, Xiaomo can accompany him to travel far and wide. Qin Pingan suddenly felt a little hairy in his heart, and glanced at Xiaomo. Damn, is it possible that Xianhui was in the alley at the time and didn't misread Xiaomo? How hard is it to guard yourself against coming and going, how meticulous so that this kind of thing can be dark under the light? Xiaomo smiled and said, don't worry son, Xiaomo has female cultivators who are similar to later generations of Taoist couples, but their appearance and cultivation aptitude are not as good as the wife in case. Qin Pingan smiled awkwardly, what do I want, how could I misunderstand Xiaomo? Xiaomo thoughtfully said, it's Xiaomo who misunderstood. Xiaomo, you go and stop the Lord Qinghuang, you can show the identity of Dali, show them the innocence card and hand it over to me at the ferry. Qin Pingan quietly fell down, walked to the umbrella ghost, put his fingers together, gently pressed against the oil paper umbrella, and laughed in his heart. Is this a girl who makes a tricky journey on the road? Ghosts trample on the shadows of the young people at will, hurting people's vitality and invisible, so you are not afraid of doing more calamity out of thin air but taking the blame? The female ghost had a very white face. She turned her head to look at the swordsman in the blue shirt. She was terrified and trembling, begged for mercy. Masters, slaves and maids have hardships. Please be kind to the masters. Just let the slaves and maids be kind. After crossing this river, you will immediately leave the immortal master's great kindness, the servants and maids will be unforgettable. Between words she took out a purse from her sleeve. 16 immortal money is the new Jingna's savings. I only ask the ferry master to let the slave and maid leave only one, so that it can be given to the person in front of you. Public. The oil paper umbrella she was holding was already held by the fingers of the blue-shirt swordsman. She had to stand still, but the scholar in front didn't realize it. He just walked forward slowly, waiting for her embroidered shoes to leave. The shadow of the scholar, the ground was hot like a pan, leaving her nowhere to stand in the sun. Her face faded and she was holding back the pain, so she had to lift one foot and step on the other embroidered shoe. The female ghost holding an umbrella was in the line of life and death, subconsciously raised her eyes, and looked at the back of the scholar in front of her. She looked a little trance, reluctant to give up, and smiled with relief. Then she would sip the ferry master, always spit on his face before she was reconciled, and then reduced to the other side's merit for killing demons and slayers. But the green-shirt guest smiled, put his fingers together, and tapped the oil paper umbrella lightly. In an instant, the golden silk thread poured down the umbrella surface like rain, as if it were open. A circle of curtains. She is like falling into a cool place in the fairy family. Qin Pingan handed over a stack of Huangshi talismans and said, after crossing the river, I repaid the scholar. If you like, you can go to a place called Jianghu and find a monk named Zenji. Maybe you can visit cultivation over there. This mountain is not difficult to find, you will know when you get there. If you don't want to travel far, just feel free. On the front line of life and death, the female ghost holding the umbrella has no killing intent and tyrannical aura. A bit of spiritual light has not been covered by the natural hostility of Yinling. This is the pure Dao Xian. Otherwise, with the help of Xiaomo to examine the content of her heartstrings, this female ghost has divided right and wrong, good and evil, and Qin Pingan has no need to be so aggressive. The female ghost holding an umbrella is suspicious. For no reason, in a peaceful meeting, why should the other party be so benevolent? I just thought about it a second time. At this point of my own incomprehensibility, why did he make the immortal master with unfathomable one-handedness in front of him so calculated and framed? Thinking about it again, she was a little worried. Could it be that the other party coveted her beauty? Chen Pingan could bear any misunderstanding and could not stand the injustice alone. He laughed angrily. Quickly follow the scholar to cross the river, and think less about what you don't have. The female ghost really didn't dare to think about anything. She tremblingly put away the stack of immortal family talisman, gave a blessing, thanked her, and quickly stepped forward. After a few steps, she discovered that she hadn't walked in the shadow of the scholar. The same walking is no problem. She couldn't help but stop and turn her head to ask. Dare to ask the name of the fairy lord, the fairy mansion? The bookish swordsman in the blue shirt who looked at it a few more times shook his head. Don't know if these are missing. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes firm. The slave servant sincerely asks the immortal master, or say a number. I saw the man patted the saber on the waist and smiled. My name is Qin Pingan. I am a swordsman. Is not only learning from someone but making a joke with the umbrella ghost girl. Was again for the county city god, because Xiaomo's last-ranked card from the Dali Department of Punishment didn't seem to be particularly useful. Turned around and held a fist on the side of the city who was driving in the mist, then used the Yun Shui body and continued on the road with Xiaomo. After the Cheng Huangyi, the Sun Yushin and the General Yoke, and the Qingshan guest who had signed up, he pressed the head of the cloud and came to the shore to let the uncle he who was supposed to be blocking the road just do it. The female ghost let go. That he Bo was also a savage person. Even if he saw the city's boss of a county, he still had to ask for a reason before he was willing to give way. The city was in a very good mood. Not only was he not annoyed but he told he Bo. The sword fairy in Qingshan is exactly the young mountain lord of the Luapa mountain in Longzhou, Dali Qin Pingan, the lord of the sect. Xuanhuan teased the uncle he. The sky is so big that a sword fairy can stop here, and he has to separate some of his own merits and a female ghost to cross the river. He was very proud of his heart, but he said, the realm of a sword immortal is greater than the sky, and it is not too great for the truth of the humble duty here. Qinghuang smiled. So this is the reason why you are here as He Bo, and I sit in Qinghuang Temple in Junqing. He Bo suddenly asked, is that Qin Jianxian from the Fallen Mountain? Poor, look down on Jinghua Shuiwei, can't afford the Shanshui mansion news, and the news from the mountains is far inferior to the city god. It's just that colleagues and Shangguans often mentioned in the liquor bureaus that two young sword immortals in their 40s came out of the Dali dynasty. They asked the sword together and demolished the Patriarch Hall in Jingyang Mountain. Especially it was Qin who had a bad temper, and used a sword to chop off the head of the old ancestor who moved the mountain. Looking back at the behavior style of the green shirt swordsman, it doesn't seem to resemble external rumors. Could it be that the Lord Qinghuang had missed it? Qinghuang nodded. You can't do anything fake, it's true. He uncle complained. Oh, Lord Qinghuang, in that case why didn't you tell me earlier? I can ask Qin Jianxian for a calligraphy. Qinghuang Lord stared. Did you not say it earlier? He both stopped talking. Whoever is the official is reasonable. Xiao Mo followed his son on a Yufeng tour, continued on his way and asked, my son used to travel like this? Qin Pingan smiled and said, nosy? Xiao Mo smiled and said nothing. Qin Pingan said, when the realm is high the world is small. It seems that there are trivial things at the foot of the mountain. It's not wrong to say that, but you and me stop for a little time. The difference is that you accompany me to take a ride on the talisman to watch the mountains and rivers. It's a little bit different from me being dragged by your shoulders. But for others, it may be life and death, the road and the knelt on the ground and begging for mercy. Whether it's on this day each side or the lover finally gets married. Xiao Mo said, the sun is preaching the method Xiao Mo has been taught. Qin Pingan endured and endured. Xiao Mo said, I heard Mr. Zhu say that the origin of the atmosphere of Luapa Mountain is attributed to the sun's original source and setting an example. Qin Pingan twitched at the corner of his mouth. Nonsense, I have no relationship with me. Xiao Mo sighed, the sun is really imaginary. The mountain roads are winding like snakes, rugged and difficult to navigate. A motorcade is all pony. An old man with white eyebrows and a saber riding a sword. It is estimated that he was away from home, so the old guard did not shave much. Keeping pace with a young Taoist priest. At the turn of the mountain road, slowly walked out of a green shirt with double knives on his waist and smiled, robbery. Behind him stood a young man who looked like a scholar. The old man laughed and said, Mountain at first glance, it is a person who does not rob money but only robs and can only wrong you. The young Taoist priest smiled and said, Brother Su, you are more handsome. You don't always talk about appearance. And together with Chen Pinganjia, are you not enough? The two rolled over and got off their horses facing the other person. Martial arts guard saw the green shirt swordsman, walked quickly, raised both hands, and held hands with Su Yuanxia and Zhang Shanfeng respectively. Most of them know this person, whose surname is Chen. It is a friend of the old museum owner. I don't know what's going on. The man in the blue shirt actually walked on foot to lead the horse for the owner of the museum, talking and laughing. Went down the mountain and passed by an inn. For people sat at a table. The owner made an exception. Not only did he drink while walking the dart, he also allowed all martial arts disciples to drink a bowl. It's weird. Is the owner really afraid of going out halfway? Chen Pingan picked up the wine bowl, took a sip of the wine, and took out a not-thick book from his sleeve. He smiled and said, "Look through it?" Su Yuanxia wiped the corners of her mouth, took a closer look and quickly wiped her sleeves. Then she picked it up. It was a collection of Su Zi's poems. The last time I mentioned it at the wine table, Chen Pingan started bragging about it, not drafting, saying that he could help himself to ask for a collection of poetry with the title of Su Zi, and he could even help his own landscape. Preface to Travel Notes. Su Yuanxia opened it cautiously, and she found that she really had the title of Su Zi and a private seal. There is also a sentence, a career wrapped in a thick cloth, a gift to the bearded ranger Su Yuanxia, plus the year and month signature. Su Yuanxia flushed, and in her arms she laughed and said, "The stinky kid imitated the handwriting pretty much, I take it for real." Chen Pingan picked up the wine bowl and said, "When I turn back to help you write the preface." Su Zi agreed. "I'll help you send the manuscript to Su Zi as soon as you finish writing it." Su Yuanxia looked suspicious. Zhang Shanfeng began to arch the fire. "What are you trying to do? Why don't you hurry up and toast to our Uncle Chen?" Chen Pingan continued, "I still have a copy of Su Zi's copybook, but I forgot to bring it with me this time I went out. If I want, I can go to Luopishan to get it." Su Yuanxia stretched out 3 fingers and shook her. "You kid, that's okay, just said 3 things and she has blown 3 cowhides." In fact, these days Su Yuanxia would go to the Xianxia mountain near the martial arts hall to hang out from time to time and ask about things on the mountain. So the old people know about the ceremony in the Luopa mountain at Jinyang mountain and the discussions in the Middle-earth Confucian temple. Every time I climbed slowly, hurried down the mountain, returned home, drank alcohol and went to sleep drunk. Su Yuanxia raised the wine bowl, bumped heavily with Chen Pingan and smiled. "If you're busy, you don't have to go back to Xianyu County with us. It's just a few drinks, business matters." Chen Pingan chuckled and said, "Don't pretend to be heroic with me here. I'm going to really go. You can't scold me to death on Zhang Zhenren's side." Zhang Shanfeng smiled and nodded. Now he is in the Sevuing realm and he is called a real person on the wine table, which is not excessive. Su Yuanxia just turned her head and looked at the yellow hat youth. She regretted it. Sure enough, this guy who was in charge of helping pouring the wine had already nodded herself, and only said one thing, "I would go one by one," and drank it in one go. Before this meal, Xiaomo always said nothing when he was toasted. A large bowl of wine must be finished in one sip. After a few times, Su Yuanxia and Zhang Shanfeng would not dare to toast much, and then as long as there is a meeting of sights, will be regarded by Xiaomo as being persuaded to drink or bored with a mouthful. Am afraid of such heroes on the wine table. The wine is very good and the result is better than the wine. What's more, Xiaomo is very well prepared. Every time he asks Daxia Su to say something, if Su Yuanxia drank it in one sip, Xiaomo would pour herself 2 more bowls, which caused Su Yuanxia to toast or drink. On Mo's side, I can only be really casual, in short. I'm very happy. So Su Yuanxia actually didn't drink much, she just raised her wine bowl a lot of times and she came and went anyway. It was like a savory drink. After that, she returned all the way to Xianyu County, and learned that Chen Pingan was going to Tongyi's house to establish her next clan. Su Yuanxia couldn't help but let Chen Pingan get out. Chen Pingan didn't bother to pay attention to him. Sitting on horseback with sleeves in both hands, shaking shoulders and double knives folded at his waist, he just casually chatted with Zhang Shanfeng. The 2 parties had already agreed to go to Tongyi's house and Zhang Shanfeng. Ask Su Yuanxia if he is angry. There is no way, some people are getting old, their legs and feet are not bright and walking darts is no problem even if they bite their teeth. Young and strong men travel the rivers and lakes, drink that flower wine, see beautiful women, they are all willing to kill thieves but are powerless catch the thief myself. Was very angry with Su Yuanxia. This way back to Qingyuan County, Su Yuanxia had a relationship with officials, post stations, or jianghu sects along the way, and occasionally experienced disciples. For some reason Xiaomo always felt that his son would be like two people on the Luapa mountain. He would be lazy, basking in the sun, drinking a little wine and occasionally whistling as if it was the tune of a folk song. When he arrived at the martial arts hall in Xianyu County, Xiaomo became more and more eye-opening, and he turned out to be his own master who cooked a table of dishes. Su Yuanxia, with arms around her chest, leaning against the door of the stove, smiled and watched two old friends and a new friend busy over there. Drinking today is just a drink. When he arrived at Zhang Shanfeng's house, Qin Pingan took the lead and opened a book with paintings. Zhang Shanfeng complained, "Brother Su, I am a Taoist priest. What do you mean by putting these books on the table?" Su Yuanxia chuckled, "Yomo is a book with long legs." She sneaked in by herself. "It has nothing to do with me." There was still a midnight snack in the evening. Su Yuanxia took the three of them out of the martial arts hall and found a small restaurant opened in the back alley. This meal Qin Pingan and Zhang Shanfeng opened up for a drink, like an infighting. At dawn the next day Qin Pingan rubbed his forehead, not knowing how he returned to the martial arts hall. After getting up he opened the door and walked out. After not walking a few steps he found Xiaomo squatting on the steps next to the martial arts field, watching Su Yuanxia teaching his disciples and grandchildren practicing boxing and walking. Zhang Shanfeng, this stupid man, was holding a bowl of wine beside him, and he was resurrecting his soul through drinking and hangover. Su Yuanxia waved to Qin Pingan, "Come here and teach some fist moves." The disciples of the martial arts hall all looked at the master Qin, who was so mysterious by the owner. White hairpin and blue shirt, stepped on a pair of black cloth shoes with Melaleuca sole. They have to admit that the appearance is somewhat correct. As for boxing scripts, since they are friends of their own pavilion owner, they are good and bad. Why does the owner of the pavilion have such a good reputation in the arena, especially among peers? Isn't it the incense sent by the fist? If it were not for the kindness of the owner of the museum, enough oil and water for a meal, he would never be in arrears with wages, otherwise he would really not be able to keep a few people. Just now, the real Zhang has been drawn by the master of the museum and taught a set of boxing techniques. Good guy, I guess it is really not sober, soft and circle there. So they don't have much hope for this young master Qin who often walks the world. Qin Pingan smiled, pulled up a corner of the blue shirt and long gown, tied it around her waist, came to Su Yuanxia's side, turned her back to the martial arts disciple, and walked the 6 steps of shaking xuanhuan first. The young and strong teenagers looked at each other behind them. "That's right, I am indeed a friend of my own curator." Xiaomo smiled. "A fist is like mountains and rivers, and heaven and earth are connected. Yuhong, Zhou Haijing and other 9-level martial arts, fortunately to face their own son, it is a punch." Su Yuanxia sat next to Xiaomo and laughed softly. "These little rascals, how can you tell the depth?" makes Xiaomo laugh. Xiaomo shook his head and said, "Each has its own high and low, each has its own knowledge." Su Yuanxia gathered the sound into a line and said, "There is Lao Xiaoma on this road." What kind of person Qin Pingan is, it's no better to know that if he went out to find himself and Zhang Shanfeng for a drink, he would never bring anyone with him unless he was seriously injured. Su Yuanxia looked at the figure in the green shirt who was getting faster and faster in the martial arts field and smiled, "I am getting older. If I am 10 or 20 years earlier, I will definitely drink with Xiaomo and stay drunk." Xiaomo whispered, "In the eyes of the sun, Daxiasu may not really be so young, but I believe that in the eyes of the sun, Daxiasu will always be the big hero who walks in the wind and rain." The old man rubbed his chin and said with a smile, "Reasonable." After that, Qin Pingan stayed in the martial arts gym for 3 consecutive days. In the end, Su Yuanxia drove people away and scolded Qin Pingan and Zhang Shan with a smile. "Feng's 2 unscrupulous bastards, are they eating and drinking here and waiting for their own death so that they can divide their property?" In the past few days Qin Pingan has taught and fed boxing. The martial arts disciples finally realized that they had a big change in their impressions, and they believed that this young Master Qin was really a master. It is estimated that he can beat at least 2 hall masters. If you open a martial arts center here in the county seat, your business will certainly not be bad, especially for female apprentices, absolutely indispensable. This morning, squatting on the steps, Qin Pingan rubbed his eyebrows while holding a wine bowl, watching Zhang Shanfeng teaching boxing over there. The martial arts disciples were awkwardly throwing their punches, each holding back and laughing. Qin Pingan also tolerated laughing. Before leaving for her journey, Su Yuanxia suddenly asked Qin Pingan to write a plaque in the lobby. She also said that she should be bold and bold. Prepared pen, ink, paper and inkstone. Xiaomo was studying ink beside him. Chen Pinggan took his pen to write the 4 big characters of the list. The signature was Luopashan Chen Pinggan. He also took out the private seal of one party and sealed it Chen Shi. Chen Pinggan put the pen on the pen holder, turned his head to look at Su Yuanxia and smiled. If you still don't feel the momentum is enough, I can change that 1 to 9. Su Yuanxia laughed loudly and said that it was almost done, otherwise he would fart to Wuguan and couldn't hold it down. The 4 characters of the plaque in the list of books are 1 continent. Su Yuanxia sent all the way to the outside of the county without any muddles, holding her fists and presenting 4 characters to the 3 of them and went all the way. When he arrived at Huaihuang County, Zhang Shanfeng did not live with Chen Pinggan on the mountain, but settled down at the Chaotu shop in Qilong Lane. He talked to the old Jia Chen Lingjun and a young Taoist priest named Xianhui. Ming said that he was going to pick up the wind and dust for him, and it was another drink of wine and dimly. Then Zhang Shanfeng surreptitiously asked Chen Lingjun to lead the way, saying he was going to the water god Nyang temple on the Tiefu River. Chen Lingjun winked and understood that the marriage lottery there was extremely effective. The only problem is that the goddess of water has moved. This is a trivial matter. Uncle Chen can't help taking it to a mountain temple elsewhere in Longzhou, just as alive. When Xianhui heard that he was going to the Tiefu River water temple, he would follow, and when he heard that he was going to burn incense with a certain mountain god, he was not happy to go. Chen Pinggan took a trip to Muping Alley by himself, first stepped over the wall and landed in the courtyard of Song Jie's house. This was the first time Chen Pinggan did. After using the water cloud body to enter Song Jisin's study, there is no need to dig through the boxes and cabinets. In a porcelain vase for Qing offerings placed on the bookshelf, he opens a layer of mysterious and concealed scenery that is not difficult to open. In the end, Chen Pinggan was killed. I found a piece of broken porcelain, and besides this, there are also a few pages of yellowed paper left by the Queen Mother Nanzhan of Dali, which are fragments of Tao Ju from Mr. Sanshan Jiuho. Then came to the door of his ancestral house. Chen Ping squatted down to dig up the soil and took out a rouge box that had been buried in the alley for many years. I went to another deserted mountainous area and found a small grave without a monument. These are the inside stories that Aunt Feng was at the Huoshan temple before. There is a stone on the grave that is pressed against the already whitened red paper. It is estimated that someone went to the grave during the Qingming festival this year, and then rain fell on this side after another. And the small graves show signs of adding soil every year. Chen Pinggan squatted down and took out 2 pots of wine, 1 pot of glutinous rice fermented from his hometown, and the other pot of rice wine from the mountain, all poured in front of the small grave. After walking a long distance, Chen Pinggan glanced back and then Yufeng left. In the night, Chen Pinggan moved a small bench and sat near the kiln head of a dragon kiln, and sat alone until dawn. Longzhou has officially changed its name to Chuzhou. The transfer of officials cannot be said to be infrequent. Just like the long history of the Kiln Affairs Supervisory Office, it has been replaced by a new superintendent a long time ago. He is a son of a family from the capital, but it seems that the more he wants to make a difference, the more he can do nothing. Chao Gingxin, the drunkard's officialdom, is not a little bit worse. The ruins of the Moon Palace presented by Xiao Mo came from a round of bright moon, just like an ancient and alternative summer palace. Chen Pinggan had already greeted Xiao Mo in advance, and would pass this gift to Lu Xianying. Xiao Mo had better talk, of course it didn't matter. Chen Pinggan waited until dawn, put away the bench and returned to Luopa Mountain. In the previous ceremony at Jingyang Mountain, Chen Pinggan asked Guanyiran to send a secret letter to the hunting envoy Chao Ping. After receiving the letter, Chao Ping stopped attending the celebration and left. It is equivalent to a 300-year covenant between Luopa Mountain and the Chao clan of Shangzhou Kingdom. There is no need for Chen Pingyan and Chao Ping to meet, and there is no need to put that contract on paper. There is no need for black paper and white words. It is just a 2-party agreement. There is a tacit agreement between gentlemen. Luopa Mountain will protect Chao's incense, and there will be no, some worst results. Both parties knew this well. The so-called accident was not that the Chao family lost his hereditary status as the upper pillar country, but the kind of family destruction in the true sense and the severance of incense. Although this possibility is extremely small, Chen Pinggan started his letter with this, but he was even more sincere. Within 300 years, the Chao family can send pure martial arts or cultivating embryos to Luopa Mountain to practice peacefully in the mountains, and Luopa Mountain will cultivate them carefully. If this matter is too revealing, it is easy to be jealous by the Song court. Chen Pinggan can also secretly send those candidates to places such as Taihui Jianzhong in Luzhou, Beiju, or the dragon elephant on the South Pasuozu. Jinzong. Chao Ping soon made Qin Pingan feel Chao's vigorous actions. Because the Chao family has quietly sent 2 people to Luopishan, 2 children surnamed Chao, and a pair of young girls. Young Chao Yin, whose name is Fengxing, is a descendant of the Chao family. She is a sword-repairing embryo. The girl is given the surname is Chao, and the nickname is Wutong. Now she is a martial artist in the 4 realms, and she has a pretty good foundation. According to the rules of the wealthy family, the girl is Chao Yin's maid and also a dead soldier. The 2 were placed in a mansion in the back mountain of Luopa Mountain by Zhu Lian. Cui Dongshan pointed out the practice of young Chao Yin, and gave back a few cheats on the mountain. As for Chao Yang, Sui Yu and Pei Qian had taught her a few punches before. Qin Pingan wanted to go to the mansion there by himself, but he hesitated while seeing the 2 of them chatting, but let Qin Lingjun call them to come over and meet at the stone table by the cliff. The teenagers and girls rushed to the mountain together. They saw the bamboo tower first, and then they saw the green shirt, standing on the edge of the cliff with a graceful demeanor. The man smiled at them and nodded in greeting. Chao Yin walked forward quickly and the girl followed behind. The young man saluted. Chao Yin pays homage to the mountain lord. The girl stood a step behind Chao Yin. She just bowed her head and folded her hands and clasped her fists. She hadn't gotten up for a long time with this famous sect master. Due to some unwritten rules, she kept her duty and did not have a self-registration number. The blue shirt in front of the eyes is a 40-year-old sword fairy in the upper 5 realms. Is still a martial artist who has stood on the top of the world. Qin Pingan stretched out a hand and said with a smile, Chao Yin, Chao Yang, all sit down. A pair of young girls who looked like Biren took their seats one after another. Qin Pingan sat down and asked, is it still used to living in the mountains? Chao Yin is young and mature with a calm temperament. He replied stubbornly, going back to the mountain, I can't live better. Qin Pingan smiled and said, in Luopa Mountain you don't need to be too cautious. You can just walk around and take a look while practicing boxing. The girl is a person who learns boxing and martial arts. Facing this boundless martial artist, she is actually more in awe than Chao Yin. Feng is a god. So today when she meets Qin Pingan, it is like meeting a living with respect and respect. I heard that he was coming to see this mountain lord, but Chao Yang was actually confused and his mind was muddled. If it weren't for coming from the back mountain to the edge of the Zhulu cliff, there would still be a long stretch of mountain road to walk, so that she could calm down her mood quickly. It is estimated that the question and answer will be lost when it comes to this side. Qin Pingan didn't talk much with them. After they left, he hesitated and let Zhongli live a long time. He called Pei Qian, who was staying in the lotus flower-blessed land, back to Luopa Mountain, saying that he was waiting for her on the 2nd floor of the bamboo building. Go up the stairs and came to the corridor on the 2nd floor. Qin Pingan sat at the door, took off his cloth shoes and placed it outside. I have noticed the strangeness of Pei Qian. Previously, Luopa Mountain watched Jingyang Mountain. Pei Qian said something, and when he returned to Luopa Mountain he broke the border, but it dragged on again and again. Although the distance to that time was not long before the actual date, Qin Pingan did not dare to take it lightly. As a pure taker he is actually in pressure. A 9-realm Wufu can already break the bottleneck but deliberately suppress it. If he is careless there will be a big hidden danger. Who borrowed your courage? Am I the master? Qin Pingan walked into the house, empty, and began to close his eyes to rest. In the past he traveled alone to Luzhou and Beiju, but was inexplicably asked about a boxing. Qin Pingan almost mistakenly thought he was going to die at that time. The person who asked him indiscriminately turned out to be the old housekeeper who was changing his name in the Sasa Villa, Wu Fengjia, his real name Guyu, and a member of the Great Seal dynasty. In the past, one of the 3 native martial artists of Luzhou and Beiju once used double fists to disperse the dynasty vassal 10-7 immortal masters, all of which were single-handedly expelled by this pure martial artist. Guyu is the ancestor of shaking xuanhuan. When he received the punches by himself, he walked and handed the punches nearly 1.6 million punches. In order to test his own depth, Guyu punched hard and made more sense. The old man once said that there are thousands of boxing skills to die, and the real boxing is to live out a kind of boxing. Of course, Guyu also said a rhetoric that fits well with the realm of Shanshan boxing master and ending Wufu. Roughly means that he does not talk about the level of Cui Cheng's boxing skills, but the fact that he boxing is normal. Replacing him with him can ensure that Qin Pingan is the strongest. Qin Pingan put away his thoughts and opened his eyes. Pei Qian is here. She took off her boots at the door and hesitated to walk into the house. Qin Pingan rolled up his sleeves and said solemnly, I will not be overwhelmed, I will decide the winner. Pei Qian remained silent and motionless. Qin Pingan is exactly the same as Gu Yu and himself in the past, bending his knees slightly, twisting his wrists towards himself, passing a fist forward and slowly saying, "I'll ask you a fist with shaking mountain fist." Pei Qian looked a little flustered, staring at his master in a daze. The most familiar master made her feel a little strange. Qin Pingan angrily said, "Pei Qian, if you are against others, you are already dead right now." Pei Qian just didn't speak, and she didn't have the intention to gather fists. Qin Pingan kicked the ground as fast as thunder, and the whole bamboo building shook violently, and he hit the door of Pei Qian's face. Pei Qian only retreated 2 steps, leaning back against the wall. Qin Pingan almost hit her forehead with a punch, forcibly closed the fist and laughed again. In the end, only distressed, he said helplessly, "Forget it." Pei Qian grinned. Qin Pingan bends his fingers and a chestnut beats Pei Qian to hold his head. Seeing that the master had gone to the door, sitting down and putting on cloth shoes, Pei Qian was relieved all of a sudden. Pai Dian sat down with the master and laughed softly. "Master, I'm telling the truth. 3 punches, at most 5 punches, it's over." Qin Pingan said in a bad mood, "You know?" The old man in a blue shirt, long coat and cloth shoes bent his knees slightly, twisted his wrists, grasped his fist and slowly handed it forward, making a fist with one hand but retracting. "I shake the mountain fist, the most heavy punches against the enemy, 1 punch, keep your mind, so even if you meet the enemy's 3 masters, as long as your fist is not scattered, you can still make another punch. Let your immortal spell reach the sky, the mountain presses my top, I shake the mountain fist and open the mountain." This is me at the time of Gu Yu's 7 realms. He had this realization before he could write the preface of this boxing book. If you, Qin Pingan, want to go higher than me in the future, you should have this big idea of being completely ignorant of the heights of the world. At the edge of the big pit, a blue shirt, long coat and cloth shoes appeared. It was the old martial artist. Wu Fengjia, or leaving aside Li Er, who was born out of the sky. He is one of the 3 native martial artists of Luzhou and Beiju, Gu Yu of the Great Seal dynasty. The Great Seal dynasty in the surrounding countries. Why is there only one Jinlin Palace where the weak Yuaning sits? And why is the Jinlin Palace so weak that it will be regarded as a waste hill that has never been heard before by the Duckweed Sword Lake? It was Wu Fu Guyu who beat the gods on the mountains of a dozen countries with double fists, and almost all of them were expelled from the country. Guyu once said, "The heavens are big and the earth is big, the gods are gone." Huge words must have feats to be a true hero. The old man squatted down and said with a smile, "Of course I am not called Wu Fengjia. I was just walking the rivers and lakes when I was young. It was the name of a dead knight. He died in order to save a roadside beggar who was crushed by wheels. On the spot. The little lame, who has been practicing boxing all his life, just wanted to prove one thing to this lifesaver. In order to save a pus-covered orphan, a martial artist took his own life. It's worth it." Gu Yu's pseudonym was actually someone else's name. He was just a martial artist from all over the world. He died in order to save a roadside beggar. So after Gu Yu became famous, as long as he was away from home, he would use this name to compete with the Wufu on the mountain. Just to prove one thing, the martial artist of the 4 realms back then took his life for a child covered in rotten pus. Not so. Not worth it. Qin Pingan stood by the railing, turned his head and looked at the town. Is like Mr. Qi protecting a Liju cave sky. The growth of the younger generation in every small town can prove one more point, and this matter is not so unworthy. Many young people always feel that the sky is big and the earth is mine, and they only dare to see if I want it or not. Only after adulthood, bold words require feats to be considered a true hero. So the Confucian temple was discussing matters, and during the confrontation between the 2 worlds, they wore a green shirt and fought as soon as they spoke. So the last hidden official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi will never just say something lighthearted just because he has returned to Howran World. Then I will go to the Wild World, drag and drop the river, interrupt the Fairy Hair City, cut the Moon Mountain with the sword, and blade the head of the Peak Sword Repair of the Ascendant Realm. Qin Pingan patted Pei Qian's hairdo on top of his head and said softly, "Go back to the Lotus Flower Fortune, you can break the border tomorrow." In fact, I know why Pei Qian must be so pressured. Is to wait for a certain day. Because Senior Cui Qing left on this day. The old man did not give any last words in a small temple in the capital of Nanyuan State. It seems that all the truths are being taught in the bamboo building. Pei Qian nodded and returned to the Uwafa land. Did not go directly to Nanyuan National Capital City, but chose a secluded area. She landed straight in a straight line and the earth shook. Flying all the way, every time the water crosses the water, every mountain is over the mountain, and occasionally resting by the water, Pei Qian will catch a few fish and stew in the pot, start the fire to cook the rice and the fish soup. It is indeed a bit salty. In the night, I strolled through the familiar and unfamiliar Nanyuan National Capital City, walked through the streets and alleys, saw the 2 stone lions squatting at the door, and finally came to the Xinxiang Temple in Nanyuan country. Pei Qian sat on the steps and stared blankly into the corridor. She was silent for a long time. Wait until the sky has white fish belly, a figure rises from the ground and goes to the sky. Please take care of a blessed land for a long life and open the door of lotus root blessed land. Pei Qian said in a deep voice, open the door. Haranjia's 9 share martial arts. There are also 2 majestic martial arts from the wild world and the Qingming world, flocking to the Luapa mountain and into the lotus flower blessed land. Was smashed one by Pei Qian in a drumming style. A blessed world, martial arts fall to the world like majestic rain. Near the gate of Fudi on the horizon, Qin Pingan has sleeves with both hands, beside him is a Long Life in a snow-white robe. Long Life smiled and said, Pei Qian's martial arts broke through really unreasonable. Qin Pingan looked indifferent and said, it's not surprising after all, it's my big disciple. From the corner of Changming's eyes, he caught a glimpse of this young mountain master, deliberately speaking understatement, but the smile between his eyebrows was like, my girl is the best in the world, do you still need to say this kind of thing? Old father. Zhang Li Changming joked, I will be sacked in the middle of the night, and the mountain owner can call me. Qin Pingan smiled and nodded, you have to stop me at that time and pay attention to the strength of kicking people. A group of 3 people visited Hangzhou town, and Qin Pingan bought a few books from the shopkeeper Li Jin at the bookstore. Today the millet grain did not carry the golden pole, nor did he carry the green bamboo stick, but the cloth bags slung. On the mountain road, the millet grains are walking in the forefront, twisting a golden melon seed with 2 fingers, holding it high, shaking his head and shaking his head, never tire of it. In the twilight, the water god temple is about to close. Change the temple blessing. She used to be an old woman, but now she is a simple woman. Qin Pingan couldn't laugh or cry when he saw the woman whose eyebrows were vaguely familiar. This jade liquid river empress is really ubiquitous. The woman in front of him who served as the new temple blessing, he really knew, in fact she was still a peer 2 or 3 years older than Qin Pingan. Because he is a small town native in Huaihuang County, his surname is Lu, but his relationship with Lu on Fulu Street has long been estranged, and he can't climb any relatives. The person she married was also a native of her hometown. She worked as a kiln worker in Longyao, but was far away from the kiln where Qin Pingan was an apprentice. Their family sold the house in the early years and moved to Zhouqing with the family. A wealthy day that I didn't even dare to think about before. The woman was a little uncertain, with a bit of joy on her face. She tentatively asked, is it Chun from the Nipe Lane? Pingan? A few years ago, about Mo was the ancestor of Jida. She was actually regarded as the goddess of the water god and she was half a mountain man. Although she had never practiced immortality, she had seen a lot of immortal masters. There are quite a few noble ladies with official hats and wearing gold and jade. 2 of them are still the legendary ladies. Really made her excited at first, but later women are not rare to go to Langzhou City to show off. Every time a man goes out to drink, he will have a blushing face, saying that he is good fortune and beg a glorious daughter-in-law, you are not worse than the Gu family widow in Mud Bottle Alley. And nowadays the man who has never read a book will learn how to draw words from a talented person, as if picking up a string of 4 words from a sauerkraut jar. Qin Pingan smiled and nodded and shouted out the other's name, Yanmei, I haven't seen each other for many years. I only heard that your family moved to Langzhou City before, but I didn't expect you to be here. In the past, the locals in small towns used to marry early, and many women would marry when they were 14 or 5. She asked, Qin Pingan, is this your girl? Before she became a temple blessing, she had only heard fragmentary news about the orphan in Nipping Lane in front of her. It was said that Qin Pingan had met the foreign town through her friend Lu Xianyang after being an improper apprenticeship as a kiln worker in his early years. Master Huan, a human blacksmith, somehow earned his first sum of money, and bought a few hills to the west. Somehow later, he entered the eyes of the mountain of Piyun Mountain again, and he became even more magnanimous. Qin Pingan laughed dumbfounded, and this was troublesome, so he had to touch the head of the millet grain. Xiaomi Li smiled while covering her mouth, her eyes narrowed with crescent moons, this new title that fell from the sky, we don't admit it or deny it. The woman asked, are you here to burn incense? Qin Pingan smiled and said, I have to trouble you Feijin to pass on the Yuye Jiangshui mansion, I have something to do with Yi Qingzhu. The woman was a little surprised, hesitated for a moment and persuaded, Qin Pingan, I'm still in charge of things now, and I can offer some talismans and drive to help you drive the water to the water mansion. Although Qin Pingan is definitely not bad now, he can do business in partnership with Beiwa Mountain Monarch. The new Jiadu, who is rich in wealth, I heard that Qin Pingan has separate accounts. However, the officialdom of Xianxia has many taboos and a lot of attention. What's more, the goddess of water in her own family, according to the Golden Jade genealogy issued by the Dali court in the past years, from the 4th rank, is very high. Is the boundary of Longzhou, so it is inconspicuous. Otherwise, if it is left in the officialdom of the small vassal country, it will be a real official in the frontier. The man still insisted on his own opinion. Just spread the letter to the water mansion. I will be here waiting for the god of water empress. The woman is a bit lost. The boy in Mud Bottle Alley before, it seems that this is not the case. Qin Pingan is not good at explaining anything. If she goes directly to the Shui mansion, her temple wish will be in vain. But if she was asked to fly the sword to spread the letter, Yi Qingzhu would have to read her love. This water empress would think it's not worth asking you to be a temple blessing. Qin Pingan sat on the steps outside the gate of the water god temple. The millet grain scratched his face, pulling his head, listless. I always feel that it is causing trouble to the good guys. In fact, at the beginning she just wanted to play around in Red Candle Town, and then she could go home. But the good man Shanju just shook her head and didn't agree. She could no longer hold his leg like she did in the past, and Mr. Xiaomo is right next to her. Xiaomo did not sit beside Qin Pingan but on the far right. In this way the millet grain sits in the middle. On the surface of the river, the mist rose, and the goddess of water, Yi Qingzhu, came from the family shrine alone. Her face was pale and she couldn't hide her face in a hurry. Especially when she saw the man in green shirt sitting on the steps at the entrance of her family's shrine, her back became even more cold. Yi Qingzhu smiled happily and said to the woman at the temple, "You go back inside first, I want to talk to Mr. Chen." The temple wished the woman, confused and chatting about things, why not go to the temple to chat? Don't pay attention to the hospitality? It is also good to prepare some fruits and drinks for yourself. It's just that she didn't dare to rebel against the water and return to the temple. After crossing the threshold, she quietly turned her head and glanced at the back of the blue shirt. The woman was a little lost for a while. For so many years she occasionally thought, one day when she reunited with the boy in Mud Bottle Alley, would the other party feel a little regretful? It's just that she thought about it carefully and then she stopped thinking about it at Xianhu. In the end she was still a little worried and a little relieved. The same age in Mud Bottle Alley back then about Mo is really kind and rewarding, and finally he doesn't have to live so hard. Because when the woman was still an unmarried girl, she used to be under the lamp with her mother, and the mother was sewing clothes while chatting about her parents' short-term relationship. It's all trivial, and while talking I somehow talked about the young man who became an apprentice kiln worker. He often helped their family with some cropping work. Every time he spoke actively or when he was busy in farming he always talked about it. We'll pass the field by accident. Moreover, their rice fields always have no worries about running out of water when they are grabbing water. In most people, going to Tianbian twice in the evening is considered to be the sky, but there is a unique person not like this and often staying at Tianlong for the whole night. The reason for this seems to be because the girl's mother used to go to Mud Bottle Alley to help with 2 funerals. In fact, in small towns, neighbors in the neighborhood, as long as they are not enemies, they will often help. The old woman said that the family named Qin and Ni Ping Alley are all good people. He also said that such a good boy should not have had such a hard time. Talking that night, the last words of the mother's mother were still fresh in the woman's memory. The child was so bitter and gone, so on the side of us outsiders, we will keep smiling. There is a saying in my hometown and small town, never morally kill. It means that a person is very polite and never tells right or wrong. Qin Pingan sat on the steps looking at the Yi Qingzhu. Yi Qingzhu can't wait to dig a hole to drill down. The hermit of the fallen mountain sits and stands by himself. Doesn't it seem to be condescending? But I can't just sit on the ground. Looked up with Xiao Mo almost at the same time, looking at the sky above Luapa Mountain, a slender sword light fell. Qin Pingan stood up and before he could speak, Yi Qingzhu took a step back subconsciously. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "It's okay, I'm here to meet thee of water tonight. My neighbor hasn't been there for many years. It's not ceremonial. Turning back to our Luapashen guest, I will do my best as a landlord and invite the goddess of water to drink." Yi Qingzhu wanted to say that I would not go. But she nodded silently. Actually, Qin Pingan didn't really want to deal with her and Shuefu. In the final analysis, it still depends on the meaning of millet grains. When I walked to the water god temple along the way, Xiaomi Li's brows were always frowning, and he wanted to say something but didn't know what to say. That was the answer. Qin Pingan bid farewell with fists. Yi Qingzhu hurriedly gave a blessing. He didn't die and he hadn't been beaten. It seems that it is useful to go to other temples and temples to burn incense and pray for blessing. As for going to Luopishan as a guest, it's very simple, drag the word. Xiaomo couldn't help but laugh. This water empress was mixed for this, probably because she really knew what it was like to suffer. Returning to the original road to Hongzhou town, Qin Pingan laughed. After Ning Yao returned to Feishing City, he actually let Guizhuzhou come to Haoran world. Qin Pingan touched the head of the millet grain and asked, "Next time you look at the door, the of water will be a guest, what should you do?" Xiaomi Li shook his two small arms and laughed. "I'm so courageous, even if there is only one person at the door, it's all the same, I still have to ask the goddess of water to drink tea." Qin Pingan smiled and asked, "Are there melon seeds to serve guests?" Millet grains frowned and immediately smiled. "What do you want? I have a long temper and I want give me a seed." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "You're so grudges?" The millet grains bounced around, shaking their heads and wailing, "The big water monster of Dumb Lake, I am fierce. There are a lot of people coming to join in the fun at the Luapa Mangosteen Tower, only Pei Qian is the most dull and speechless." Guizhuzhou blinked his eyes. "Not good, the master sister is not short now." Bai Xian immediately spoke to this guy who claimed to be a disciple of the hermit, saying that Guizhuzhou would ask you to help, and help yourself be a peacemaker with Pei Qian. As long as things are done, there will be a good return. Guizhuzhou nodded and agreed, a trivial matter. She leaped forward on one toe and handed out a palm in the air. Pei Qian's face was embarrassed and she moved stiffly to raise her palm, so when the two sides passed by, she gave her a light palm once. The figure of the young girl fell behind Pei Qian, standing still, with her back facing Pei Qian, and said in a deep voice, "Master sister, you have sold me a face and your grievance with Bai Xian has been wiped out." "How?" Pei Qian put away his palm, rubbed his forehead. Okay. Guizhuzhou walked up to Pei Qian and began to circle Pei Qian. Finally, she reached out to cover her mouth and whispered in Pei Qian's ear, "Master sister is not a small boy." Pei Qian rolled his eyes. Bai Xian made up his mind he would follow Guizhuzhou in the future. What kind of money? Seeing that Pei Qian squinted at himself again with that signature gesture, Bai Xian immediately shrank his neck and looked up at the moon. Although it was known that Guizhuzhou had come to Luapa Mountain, Qin Pingan did not return immediately. Instead, Xiaomo took the millet grains back first and went to the town alone. Walking in the alley of mud bottles, Qin Pingan was alone. He did not stop at his ancestral house, but walked to the ancestral house of Gus family. There was once a young woman who was not yet a woman. A family of 3 lived here. After her father and mother passed away, she married a foreigner named Gu. So later she killed a man and became a widow. Many people in the town said that she was to blame because she was killed by an orphan from the 2 houses not far away. In the early years the child died one after another. She should know the importance, and she even dared to help in the funeral, even guarding the spirit. Later she took the child and lived a difficult life, and some people started to say weird things, saying wait and see, sooner or later, even the lone seedling of your family will be killed by the surname Qin sooner or later. Qin Pingan took a step back, leaning back against the wall, and looking at the old house that is now empty. One time in the middle of the night, when he had not been an apprentice as a kiln worker, he was a thin teenager who was sleeping, and he immediately heard the sound from the alley. Someone outside seemed to be in a hurry and even fell down, and there was a heart-piercing cry. The teenager didn't care about putting on straw sandals, so he ran out barefoot, touched the hot forehead of the child, and then touched the pulse. The teenager knows that even if he only has a rough understanding of pharmacology. First let the woman who was just crying not worry, and then took the child from the woman. He hugged the child and ran all the way to Yang's shop. The teenager holding the child in both hands, knocking on the door of Yang's shop with his forehead vigorously. In the middle of the night, there was no response, and the sweaty teenager began to kick with his feet. Finally let an old man living in the backyard open the door with his clothes, and screamed at the young man who kicked the door loudly at something uncultivated, in a hurry to reincarnate. But Grandpa Yang finally saved the little slug. Later I met Lu Xianying. Gu Qin is a child with a cool temperament since he was a child. This little slug is unfamiliar with him. This is not even said by outsiders but by Lu Xianying. However, Lu Xianying also said that no matter what, Gu Qin is alone with you, still very affectionate. Qin Pingan closed his eyes. When I was young, I wore linen and filial piety twice to see off my parents. There was that young woman in the team. Later she opened the door that time. No matter what kind of person she becomes in the future. So even if the sky falls, don't even think of Gukan's death in front of me. I can die but Gukan will not die. Chen Pinggan's sleeves shook, and he turned into a rainbow and fell directly into the backyard of Yang's shop. Entering the wing room, Li Huai said, "Only a letter was left on the table. The content of the letter is only one sentence. People take food as their heaven, are you full?" Chen Pinggan remained silent, but only put the letter in his sleeve. There is a brand new dry tobacco rod and a bag of tobacco on the table. Chen Pinggan hesitated for a moment. With the help of his memory he lit up the dry smoke. In the end he was choked with just one bite and coughed endlessly. The room was filled with smoke for a while. Is no different. Chen Pinggan bites the scalp and takes a sip of smoke. His mood is ups and downs and there are many memories. For some reason, in an instant old man Yang's voice rang in the heart of the lake. Chen Pinggan, in your eyes all the people who died in vain in the book Jianghu actually ended up very well, not only in this life or the next life, but also have extra opportunities and blessings. Cui Huang has made arrangements for this matter, without exception. Cui Yang had seen and talked about those people before and after their deaths, and each had their own desires. Therefore, some people's tragic deaths were blindfolds. In fact, they have long been given a share of money or practice opportunities. Some people are willing to die and have to get out of the bitter sea of Shujian Lake and get a stable afterlife. Cui Yang once came here to explain the matter to me, saying that he wanted a person who originally thought he had a clear conscience to be guilty of this for the rest of his life. There must be a lot of concern so that he won't be able to climb higher in the future, and he will become less and more personal, just because I feel I have never owed the world the slightest amount. Therefore he has to smash a big hole in your heart and let you spend your entire life working hard to repair it. If you are a smart person who has been wise since childhood, you have to be mediocre. Even if you already know the truth at this moment, so what? You will still carry that lingering guilt and continue on the road of life. Chen Pinggan finally left the house, holding a dry tobacco pole, sitting on the bench under the eaves, cocked his legs, squinted his eyes and vomited. The last words of the old man Yang said that the great origin of the Tao comes from the sky does not change, the Tao does not change, the world is beautiful with stars and moons, and this walk is good and safe. Sword of Coming Chapter 890, Nagiato. Green hills rise, green water flows eastward. Geese in autumn. A huge ferry is slowly approaching the shore with amazing momentum, huge ripples of spiritual energy driving gusts of mountain wind. Compared with the ordinary xianxia ferry, it looks unusually huge, such as a dragon playing in the shallow water. It was the xuanhuan ferry that didn't spend $50 on repairs. Only Zhongqiu and Cui Wei followed this ferry back to Langzhou, and completed the first transcontinental return of the xuanhuan ferry. Chen Pinggan clasped his fists and smiled, "Thank you." The opening remark of the mountain lord is a lot of hard work with fists and salutes. Zhongqiu can't help being humorous and repaying courtesy with everyone. Cui Wei is a little uncomfortable, just clasped his fists. Chen Pinggan was the most helpless. He was originally sincere and humane, but the result was good, but he was ridiculed by Dong Leisai. This time I went out, there were a lot of tourists from Luopishan who followed Chen Pingganuan. The mountain master brought a group of direct disciples such as Pei Chen the Wu Fu Fu Jianxiu Guizhuzhou, Zhao Shuxia the Wu Fu Fu in the Five Realms and Xuanhuan the Qi practitioner. Dedicated to Xiaomo yellow hat and blue shoes bookcase hiking stick, more like a weak scholar who is studying and studying. There is also Miyu who is about to serve as the chief priest of the next sect, and Yu Shehui who left from the worship platform and then traveled far away. The child saw Cui Wei, squeezed his temper and awkwardly yelled to master. Somehow he felt too awkward and the child did not forget to snorted coldly. Cui Wei nodded silently despite the accident. There was a smile in his eyes. Everything is difficult at the beginning. As long as Yu Shehui is willing to call this master, Cui Wei has full confidence that his children will not recognize him as a master. Li Pao Shan's Hangla lives for a long time with her new disciple, Nalan Jade. I can't teach any brilliant swordsmanship, so can I pay it back? There are so many sword repairs in the Luopa Mountain. Jiang Shangzhen Miyu Cui Wei Sui right? Just buy 1 or 2 swordsmanship secrets with them. Zhang Lilong Ming is now also the chief steward of Fengyuan Ferry. After Cui Dongshan became the next sect master, he said in the secret letter sent to Dei capital that his husband must agree to this matter, even if he holds the long life. I'm not very happy, but Mr. Lao must be persuaded. As for the reason, it is obvious that this sect master rule is a cornucopia. Because of the dividend of this wind kite ferry, the upper and lower clan is 7 or 3 points. Therefore Chui Dongshan, the lower sect master, spared no effort in digging the foot of the wall. Chui Dongshan wanted 6 to 4 points. Of course Qin Pingan did not agree. This student is crazy about money. In addition there are Jia Xing, the treasurer of Chaotu Shop in Qilong Lane, and Chen Lingjun, who is purely joining in the fun. The second in charge of this intercontinental ferry is the blind Taoist Jia Xing, the old of the Longmen realm, who will be responsible for managing the relationship between the ferry and various ferry crossings and Xianxia sects along the way in the future. The exchanges of friendship are a university question. There are 4 difficult ghosts on the mountain, including the sword repairman, but in Jia Xing's view, there are 2 kinds of people, the most difficult to deal with because the most difficult is to be insatiable. One is the literati in a small place and the other is half the genealogy master on the mountainside. Fortunately, Jia Xing thinks he has some experience in the world. At that time, the owner of the mountain came to Qilong Alley personally and talked about it with the shopkeeper who had been a shopkeeper for many years. The old fairy Jia was overwhelmed with excitement and just murmured repeatedly, "Hida, how can you be uncoordinated?" That's what it said, but since it was the meaning of the mountain master, I can look down on my old bones, what else can I do? The old Jafuzi is thousands of miles away, and the great burden is on his shoulders, so he can't shirk his shoulders, so he can only save himself. The old was beaten by Chui Dongshan before, and took off that dazzling Taoist robe. Now that his status has changed and he has been promoted, I can't let the various immortals underestimate his mountain. No, the old moved out of the one that hasn't been for a long time. The pressure box bottom robes that I wear on my body, bathing and changing clothes, are refreshing and become more and more immortal. Xianhui refused to move, saying that it was for me to slow down. On the deck, Qin Pingan stood at the bow, waving goodbye to those who had come to see off at the ferry. Qin Pingan asked Bai Xian if he would follow Xiao Mo to practice his sword. Xiao Mo's roots and feet and the realm of cultivation, all told the truth with his children. Bai Xian shook his head and refused, saying that it didn't matter whether Xiao Mo was born in a demon clan. Anyway, he had been sleeping for 10,000 years and had no grievances against Jianxi Great Wall. He just didn't want to find a master. There is a sentence, but the child did not say it. He has a master. Qin Pingan touched the child's head at the time and said that there is no need to force it. In the future you should be more diligent in sword practice. Don't just talk about it, don't squander your talent in sword practice, and don't let your master down. There is also a pair of masters and apprentices who have been recorded on the genealogy of Luopishan Patriarch's Hall, which is more festive. Yao Xianha. The white-haired boy he. Master and disciple recognize each other, there is no twists and turns, it was probably such a picture at the time. Zhang Jiajin, who has been planning to spend many years with Wei Wenlong on the Luopa mountain, will experience on the ferry in the future, and Fengyuan has opened a separate account room for him. Still means Chui Dongshan. As for Jiang Chu, who is both a fellow villager and a fellow of his age, he has officially settled down on the Huiming mountain. Jiang Chu has no clear ancestry for the time being. He is the only Fulu monk on the Luopa mountain, who is the only upright Fulu monk. Jiang Chu will often fly. Xuanhuan believed that the chief worship of Yun Shangqing, and asked the real person Huan Yun about Fulu's knowledge. The hidden officer returned to his hometown this time and handed him a copy of the Talisman's secret book. On the title page, the authentic pill book was written in regular script, and there was a smaller font at the end. Zhang Shanfeng did not follow Qin Pingan on a boat to Tongyi's Hao. He planned to travel to Aquarius Island alone, and he wanted to slay demons and slayers all the way. After all, he would not delay attending the next ceremony of Luopa Mountain. Qin Pingan didn't stop either. Anyway, Zhang Shanfeng Sr. was also one of the guests of Luopa Mountain. He pointed out that Shenfeng Yuan Lingyan was actually protecting the way for his juniors all the way. Qin Pingan knew about this before in Qingyuan County, and he even specialized. I went to Yuan Lingyan for a drink. After the chat, I realized that this true monarch had an opportunity to break the realm. Only when he returned to his hometown with Zhang Shanfeng, Yuan Lingyan would retreat and prepare to break the realm and become an immortal. In the conversation, Yuan Jinjuan looked quite contented about the fact that he snatched him from a few seniors this time. On the deck of the ferry there are only 2 floors and more than 40 rooms. Under there are 3 cabins for loading cargo. The members of the ferry are not complicated. The more than 60 talisman puppets and golden armored men carefully refined by Chui Dongshan are named Yugong, Jinshi, Taishenging, Moyuer, etc. Anyway, Qin Pingan is the number 1. I heard that they will be responsible for the daily repairs of the ferry and some secret geological surveys on the ferry route. I heard from xianxia that these talisman puppets are added together, and the number is nearly 100, just like the talisman of the yin and yang family. Were thrown by Cui Dongshan into the mountains and rivers above Tonggishao, looking for treasures everywhere. In addition, there are 2 earth fairy ghosts who are proficient in formations, both of whom are raw faces, and it is estimated that they will be included in the Patriarch's Hall by the next sect in the future. Since this wind kite fairy is dedicated to trade routes, it does not earn money from the gods of the genealogy monks traveling in the mountains and water, and outsiders are not allowed to board the boat. Therefore, the 2-story idol house can also be used for storage as long as no one lives. Goods. Qin Pingan went straight to the cabin, wanting to be familiar with the inside story of Fengyuan Ferris operation for the first time, especially to inspect those formation hubs. Xianxia walked at the front of the stairs to lead the way and introduced with a smile. For a transcontinental ferry, 3 things are the top priority: the speed of the wind, the degree of firmness, and the last is how much money is spent on each voyage, that is, how much spiritual energy is consumed. Not many. The 3 are interlinked. Any weak link may bring accidents and lose money. Cui Wei endured it, but after all, she couldn't hold it back and said, "Master, the operating doorway of the intercontinental ferry, the hidden official has long been very familiar." At that time, Chun Banzai, the new hermit of the Jianxi Great Wall, who was said to be the subrudder entrance of the Summer Palace, did not rarely deal with the steward of the intercontinental ferry. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "It's still different. At that time it was more about account book transactions. It really involved the knowledge of the ferry itself. In fact, I don't know much about it. The more detailed the teacher said today, the better." Sailing speed. The major sects and ferry houses with ferry boats will have various auxiliary means, just like the ferry boat of Pima Zong. There are a large number of talisman wrestlers towing the boat in the clouds, like a tracker dragging the boat as fast as thunder. Then a ferry, especially a transcontinental ferry, must be tough enough to withstand the wind, rain, lightning and thunder in the sky, and be able to withstand some natural disasters and man-made disasters. This requires the construction and engraving of a large number of landscape restrictions and talisman formations. Qin Pingan left the Luhua Island with 9 children at the beginning. Before meeting the female fairy Tsongqian, he saw a transcontinental ferry to Tonggishao in the sea. The colorful clothes around the ferry were flying, and the clothes were shaky. Such as flying in the sky. It's because there was an expert Fu Lu painted dragon girls and Narcissus on the wall of the ferry. In the world of Howren, the fairy from the Xian family, unable to pick up the sword of Dixian or Yupu realm sword fairy, are 2 thresholds which are touchstones. In addition, the fairy depletes the spirit and eats money. It is very particular. Just like the Osmanthus Island in the old Dragon City, although the speed is slow, it is unique in this matter. Because Mrs. Gue is sitting in the town, there is a laurel tree from the Pure Moon Palace in the middle of the island. Can be like a man of Taoism, absorbing the aura of heaven and earth on his own, so although Hohot Island is not fast at sea, it costs very little money. On the other hand, this transcontinental ferry that I fished from the secret library of the Xianmi dynasty is sailing extremely fast. Otherwise, I am sorry for the name Fengyuan, but the original 2 offensive and defensive formation hubs have long been abandoned, so Cui Dongshan had to do it. I did it myself and inlaid a lot of yellow and purple talismans. The basic technique is to imitate the continuous blessing of the stacks of talismans on the gate of the Dragon Tiger Mountain Heavenly Master Mansion. The defensive formation of Feng Kite is still only a rudimentary form. It's just this move the biggest advantage, similar to an endless array stacking. Only heard that Xianxia said that Cui Dongshan has already begun to draw the follow-up formation map, and will transform the Fengyuan ferry into a sword boat similar to that of the Dali army. It is obvious that Cui Dongshan intends to build this ferry into a mountain sect that can migrate around within 100 years. And for these precious talismans and treasures, Cui Dongshan did not ask for a snowflake money from the Luopishan treasury. Only in the matter of consuming aura, the Fengyuan ferry far exceeds the average level of the transcontinental ferry. Qin Pingan now doubts whether Yu Panshui is deliberately watching his own jokes. Without falling in one place, Qin Pingan followed Xianxia through the 3-story cabin and 2 of the formation centers. I came to a spacious house, and there was a geomancy map of the mountains covering the Sanzhou Mountains and rivers. The mountains and rivers along the ferry were undulating, the rivers winding, and the hills of the immortal mansions, which are distinct at a glance. The intercontinental route of the Fengyuan ferry generally belongs to the north-south line, the land of 3 continents and the northernmost ferry. It is the Dayuan dynasty located in the middle of Jidu at Beiju Luzhou. In addition, there are Yunshengcheng, Skeleton Beach, etc. After crossing the sea, it's the northernmost Hengliangdu of Aquarius Island, the Changchun Palace in the land of Dali, the Nujiashan, Zhongyue, Nanyue, Lialongking, Tonggishao. There are the Qinghu Palace in the north, the Dequan Dynasty in the middle, further south is Yuguizang, and the southernmost mountain crossing of a continent. These are only relatively important mountain crossings. According to the display and labeling of this map, there will be more mountain crossings in the future. There are 17, but now nearly half of the ferry crossings are either too small in scale or dilapidated. For the time being, it is not suitable for Fengyuan ferry boats to stop for commerce and trade. Qin Pingan stretched out his fingers and gently held up the pocket-sized mountain named Saiji Mountain on the map. It was originally the size of a mustard seed. Suddenly, this mountain of Nanyue princes has a foundation as large as a tabletop. Qin Pingan was slightly focused on it. At first glance, the shrines and pavilions in the mountains, the pavilions and lofts, are all visible, and then gently press the virtual button. Saiji Mountain instantly restores its old style, gently waving the sleeve. A Saiji Mountain is like a ball of light being blown out of the map. Rely on when the wall hovered. Qin Pingan waved his hand again. Saiji Mountain returned to its original position, and then he clenched his fist and opened suddenly. Qin Pingan was like standing in a pavilion on the cliffside of Saiji Mountain, with pines next to it, rooted in the cliff wall. The branches slanted across the forehead of the pavilion, as if the scribes drew the eyebrows for a lady. There was still sunlight. Through the branches and leaves of the ancient pine, the pavilion was covered with golden fish scales. Qin Pingan puts his hands on his sleeves as if he is standing in the pavilion of Saiji Mountain, looking far away, wearing a green shirt, covered in golden light. Putting away this landscape vision, Qin Pingan smiled to Chong Chiu. In the future we can treat guests here and invite people to drink tea and wine. The scenery is excellent. Anyway, you can shrink the mountains and rivers at will, and choose the location of the picture according to your preferences. The two 14-realm great monks have traveled far together. Zhongqiu smiled and nodded. Cui Wei looked stunned. A landscape map? Can you still play such tricks like this? This nascent soul realm sword repairer, after all, is a sincere person. Zhongqiu suddenly smiled and stretched out his hand to Cui Wei. Jianxiu silently gave a small summer money. Planting the autumn to collect Xiaoshuqian, smiled and said, "Let's go back and invite Brother Cui to drink." Qin Pingan is a little confused. Zhongqiu explained, "Before I came here, I bet on Cui Wei. I bet the owner of the mountain was on the Fengyuan ferry. The first thing was to walk around the cabin carefully. Cui Wei felt that the first thing that the owner of the mountain should do when he boarded the ship is to choose a place to live, get off the cabin, and then just take a few casual glances." Qin Pingan said a small gambling, which was good, and he said to Cui Wei in his heart, "You don't have to say it early, you should tell me when you just boarded the ship. I will definitely help you earn this little summer money, afterwards splitting the accounts, regardless of whether we two make a big profit, it's better than you lose money." Cui Wei was speechless. He really can't do this kind of non-gambling activities. Cui Wei didn't believe in a rumor before, but now he has no doubts. There used to be a shop in his hometown with 10 alcoholics and 9 caregivers. Qin Pingan's 4 direct disciples, they are living in the same room and sitting on a table. Guizhuzhou still looks like a girl, with one side hanging from the waist and holding the inkstone. She sits opposite Pei Qian. Long time no reunion, see you with pity and thinness. After Guizhuzhou arrived at Luapa Mountain, he did not hesitate to recognize Pei Qian as a senior sister, but he also recognized Zhao Shuxia as a senior brother and Xiaohuan as a senior sister. Xiaohuan was a little uneasy. Guizhuzhou gave a natural reason. "Xiaohuan, how beautiful you are, it would be a shame not to be a senior sister." As long as the hermit master does not formally accept the closed disciples for one day, then he will always be half of the closed disciples of the master, and there will be more and more senior sisters and brothers. The emperor favors Yaoer. Pei Qian asked some things about the colorful world, and then when she asked and then looked at the posture of Guizhuzhou, Pei Qian regretted his intestines. Because Guizhuzhou had already prepared, he first poured a bowl of tea for everyone, then took out a dozen pages of paper, coughed a few times and started to read. Zhao Shuxia and Zhao Huan listened with gusto. After all, they are customs and strange things in a new world. I just waited until Guizhuzhou took out a pile of paper from his sleeve, drank water from a bowl in one hand, and shook his throat vigorously with the other hand, making a clatter. The two brothers and sisters suddenly understood the feelings of the master sister. Wait until the two brothers and sisters finally listened to an emotional storyteller. One said to practice boxing, the other said to spit out and slip away. This room is Pei Qian's residence and she can't hide. Guizhuzhou lay on the table and said that the small bamboo box was left at the summer palace, which was the treasure of the townhouse. She went back to Wuxia Tianli with Pei Qian and returned it to the master sister. Pei Qian put his cheek in one hand, looked out the window and said that there was no problem. Guizhuzhou's cheeks were pressed against the desk, looking at Pei Qian and curiously asked, "Pei Qian, your ball hair bun is usually numb and not troublesome to take care of. If it is not troublesome, I will tie it tomorrow." Pei Qian smiled and said, "It's very simple, I can teach you step by step." Guizhuzhou raised his head, then changed his cheek to stick to the table. "Pei Qian, I heard that there is a custom of making bridal chambers here, can I hide under your bed then?" Pei Qian rolled his eyes and said, "I'm not married until you are married." Guizhuzhou snorted and blinked. "I heard Xiaomi Li said that you have made a big name in the arena, tell me?" Pei Qian shook his head. "The millet grains add oil and vinegar to talk nonsense." I thought Guizhuzhou would continue to cause headaches, but I never thought that Pei Qian would soon hear the slight snoring and fell asleep. The ferry goes south. The moon springs from the big river and the canoe is dangerous. Looking up is the moon bowing to the world. Thousands of autumns and moons this night, the clear light of millions of homes. Lao Xinxianjia and Qin Lingjun, two brothers, are enjoying the moon and having a drink while talking. The old Taoist chief caressed his beard and groaned, "If you have the opportunity, you have to send a letter to Chief Zhou as soon as possible." Qin Lingjun questioned, "What are you doing? You are short of money and spent?" Turning back to Xianxia's accountant to pay memorial salaries, "You will take my share together. My money is my brother's money and my brother's money is wine money." The old Taoist leader sighed, "If Brother Zhou does not come back, it is estimated that the position of the chief will not be guaranteed." Qin Lingjun suddenly realized, Yes, our little Mo brother is indeed a fellow of old Brother Zhou, a strong enemy." The two brothers looked at each other and laughed loudly. It's no wonder that the two brothers don't talk about loyalty. It is really Xiaomo who is too kind. Qin Pingan was more surprised because he saw Wei Xian's disciple so soon, a young girl who was less than 10 years old, whose surname was Chai and Wu. Wei Xian was about to rush to the barren world with a large elite frontier army. On the new and old Longqing side, he temporarily sent the little girl to the ferry, and also sent a letter to Chai Wu and asked her to hand it to Shan. Lord Qin Pingan. The little girl is delicate-looking, quiet and not short but slightly thinner than her peers. For some reason, Qin Pingan always has an illusion that the girl in front of him at a young age looks like 4 words written on her face, "I want a drink." Qin Pingan opened the envelope, and after reading the contents of the letter, he felt that his illusion was justified. Wei Xian only said that Qin Pingan would help find a few masters and teach the little girl a few fairy skills on the mountain. It would be better if the mountain master was willing to preach by himself. Don't worry about what is greedy and can't chew. Whatever she teaches, she will learn what she learns. Whether she learns or not, it depends on her own destiny. Wei Xian had only one request. Chai Wu's fist and kick skills must be taught by himself as a master. At the end of the letter, Wei Xian also specifically mentioned that Chai Wu drinks every day, so don't treat him badly here. Not drinking for nothing, he will make up the money later. Talking to the host of the mountain, Qin Pingan, the little girl was not afraid of anything, sitting on a chair with her hands on her knees, neither restrained nor lazy. She is just like a little girl from the market who knows nothing about world affairs. Qin Pingan asked, she answered. Probably because of the thin body shape, it seems that the girl's eyes are especially big. Qin Pingan took out a jug of wine, handed it to Chai Wu and said with a smile, "Your master said, you drink half a caddy of wine every day, remember to control the amount of alcohol." The little girl finally showed a shy look, smiled, a little embarrassed, and after taking over the hip flask she promised, "Only drink 2 bowls of wine for 2 wines, not half a caddy." According to Wei Xian's statement in the letter, Chai Wu drinks with him, which is very good. She usually drank half a caddy of shochu and she would vomit if she drank too much, but she could drink it after she vomited. A caddy of shochu could still be taken off without dizziness, but if she drank less she would be unhappy. Holding a hip flask, she went to the door and the little girl turned her head and asked, "Lord Shan, do you want to close the door?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Whatever you want." The little girl helped close the door. Xiaomo has been sitting at the table secretly observing Chai Wu. After the little girl closed the door and left, Xiaomo opened the door and said, "My son, I plan to strip out that natal flying sword and give it to Chai Wu." Xiaomo added, "Do this immediately. It is really this little girl named Chai Wu, who has a very good monastic aptitude. Even if I have seen countless Xiaoma on the top of the mountain, seeing Chai Wu for the first time is still amazed." It is simply a blessed fairy. God didn't say anything about the food and he was worried that Chai Wu would not have enough to eat, so he gave Chai Wu a big bowl. Generally, monks in the lower 5 realms to cultivate qi and want to absorb the spiritual aura of heaven and earth, they have to rely on a longevity bridge to connect the 2 heavens and earth, and then peel off the cocoon. It is quite difficult to distinguish the turbidity. In addition, it is necessary to open the natal acupuncture point, which is also a difficult task as a whole in the world of the human body. Xiaomo is rare to be so determined and explained, presumably the sun has already seen it. Chai Wu draws spiritual energy and there is no obstacle. Even if she throws a pile of fairy money directly to her, she can eat everything without any loss. Lost, this kind of cultivating embryo, the sooner you practice, the more money you spend, the better. If it falls into the hands of Lu clan of Aizhou, it is estimated that Chai Wu's place of cultivating will be in the treasury of the god of wealth. If Chai Wu obtains Xiaomo's flying sword, and then is successfully refined by her to become a life thing, the speed at which she can draw spiritual energy will be even more amazing, like a whale swallowing like a dragon drawing water. Qin Pingan is a little embarrassed. Xiaomo smiled and said, "The sun has thought about it a lot, I just gave her a natal flying sword for nothing. I don't want any preaching name and I will never an apprentice from General Wei. If possible, I don't need to say that I gave it to the sun. The sooner the flying sword is given and the sooner it is refined, the greater the benefits of Chai Wu's avenue." Qin Pingan frowned and said, "This is just one of them, and what about your realm cultivation?" Even if Xiaomo is absolutely sure that he doesn't need to fall, he will eventually damage his repair base, which will affect Xiaomo's sword power. Just like the unintentional words of Xiaomi Li, it is not easy for anyone to make money in the world. The practice is even more so. Xiaomo is not an ordinary heart and smiled, "Just like me, yes, Jade Pu realm bottleneck, not an ordinary realm bottleneck. Xiaomo's ascension realm reaches its peak, and it is also an extraordinary peak. Being in the world, Xiaomo and his son have learned a lot, such as not being arrogant or arrogant. For example, when you are away from home, you are respectful when you fall down. It is the same truth to respect you at the wine table first. In fact, a little loss of cultivation base as far as Xiaomo is concerned, it does not have a big impact. I really want to have a chance to pass the sword to life and death, it is nothing more than to sacrifice the flying sword of the winning hand. Therefore, the act of giving the sword is really not the little Mo Tuada, who underestimated the killing power of the monk at the top of the mountain. Along with himself, the cultivating monk in the wild world is destined to not have a fuel-saving lamp. Xiaomo is sure that he is not the one with the strongest power, nor the one with the strongest defense. But Xiaomo can be sure of one thing, he is definitely one of the top 3 in offense and defense. Anyway, there is no need to go to the wild world to mix things up. And in this vast world, the mountain monks who can let Xiaomo divide life and death are not too many, about the number of hands. What's more, quite a few have a good relationship with their own sons. For example, Beta Sheng Jing Juzhong, Fu Lu Yuxuan, Longhushan Great Celestial Master, Huolong Jinren, Lu Jubao. Qin Pingan asked sternly, "Xiaomo, are you really thinking about it?" Xiaomo nodded and said, "Then Mr. Lao will give this sword to him." Twisted 2 fingers as if holding something imaginarily, then a bright red color of sword swirling appeared, like a fire dragon. Turned out to be the Delien's natal flying sword, so it was pulled out by Xiaomo from the natal acupuncture point, and finally condensed into a fiery red sword pill about 3 inches long. Qin Pingan couldn't help cursing, "Xiaoma, you uncle?" Jianxio stripped his natal flying sword and hurt the root of Dao Dao. How could Xiaomo take it lightly and improperly? Qin Pingan had to sacrifice the bird in the cage at the first time to help cover the sky. Otherwise, it is estimated that the entire wind kite fairy will be mistaken for the big monk spell bombardment. Then Qin Pingan took out a locust wood sword box he made by himself, carefully put away the natal flying sword that has no name now, and smiled angrily, "How can I give it to such a huge meeting gift?" The little girl said about this. "Let me think about it first. I must say it clearly. I have no face to be greedy and concealed." Xiaomo rarely joked, "You don't want to be greedy for ink." Qin Pingan stared at Xiaomo. Who did he learn from? Before, Zhu Lian found himself in private and was full of praise for Xiaomo. Because Xiaomo said to him, "In the falling mountains there are many innocent hearts, probably because of the red ones near Zhu." Xiaomo smiled awkwardly. He really wasn't suitable for such frivolous chat, he still had to be a real person. It's not as good as learning from the son of a son to learn from anyone. It will get twice the result with half the effort. Qin Pingan thought for a while and said, "Fijian's name is Xuanhuan. Passing the torch. I hope that Chai Wu will get this blessing, and she can cherish it more on her practice road. If she encounters a similar fate in the future, she can continue to pass on this flying sword like today's Xiaoma. Xiaomo smiled and said, I am a little longing for the future. The Fengyuan ferry stops at a Xinjia ferry port called Kuhalu near Zhongyue. It is named after two lakes connected by large and small lakes, shaped like a gourd. In fact, the lake is extremely clear. As for why there is a bitter word in the name, the mountain has never made a clear statement. At the ferry crossing, Shanjun Jinqing and a literary scholar in Qingshan stand side by side. In addition, there are Lu Baixiang and two disciples, Yuan Baoyuan, who are also here waiting for the wind and kite ferry. It's just that there are many people in Heludu, and the three masters and apprentices have quietly boarded the ship. Lu Baixiang is now an enshrinement of a mountain of the prince in Zhongyue, and his disciple Yuan Lai once got a fairy fate in the mountain. With millet grains, there would be no gossip that Chen Pingan did not know. So this time Yuan Bao went to Tangyi's house. When she saw Chao Sunny's first side, Chen Pingan had to take a look to see if the rumor was really true. Although Yuan Bai, one of the double walls of the old Zhuang swordsmanship, failed to leave Xinjiang Mountain and followed Jinqing to Zhongyue to practice the Taoism. Instead, he went to a place named Huangshan by the Xinjiang Mountain Patriarch Hall and was responsible for the preparation of the Xinjiang Mountain. Regarding the Xia sect of Yangshan, once the suffix of the alternate sect is removed, Yuan Bai will become the master of the sect, but the realm of Yuan Bai will probably stagnate in the Yuaning realm. This is also the peace of Xinjiang Mountain, one of the roots of Yuan Bai's future affairs. But Jin Shanjun still reads the love of Qin Shanju very much, so he readily agreed to the Luopishan side. In the future, the cost of the wind and the kite will be 50% off. In fact, the last time Cui Dongshan took the ferry, he headed south to Tangyi's house and stopped at the Bitter Gourd ferry. In fact, there was a sword repairer named Xiao Poxian on the ferry. Jin Qing did not meet with him when he boarded the ferry. But when the Dacian monarch got off the boat and returned to the temple, he stood at the door respectfully and said goodbye to the ferry that suddenly disappeared into the white clouds. Chen Pingan took Xiaomo off the ferry, walked forward with a smile, clasped his fists and said, I have seen King Jinshan Wu Juanshou. The scribe in Qingshan was an old acquaintance from his hometown. It was Wu Yuan. He had a dusty nose in Huaihuan County, Langzhou, and his career was full of soft nails left by the surnames of Taoya Alley on Fulu Street. Finally leaving Langzhou sadly, it was tantamount to being relegated to a small county at the foot of Zhongyue Mountain. Now he has become an official at the remote border of Dali. The official body is still the county guard. As a registered disciple of the national teacher Cui Huang, he is also Langzhou Huai Huangxian's first county magistrate. The promotion of official career, it is simply impossible to go high and low. From the perspective of the local officialdom, Wu Juanshou is at best going to accompany the capital's Xiao Juking's office to find a spare job and stay there for retirement. Posthumous name? Chase it? Dreaming. But Qin Pingan knew that Wu Yuan would soon call back and he was promoted to the new governor of the old Langzhou and Zhenchuzu. Jin Qing clasped his fists and laughed loudly, I have seen Lord Qin Shan. Wu Yuanzhou returned the courtesy and smiled and said, Wu Yuan pays homage to Master Chen. Was called Xiao Shishu by Wu Yuan, which made Qin Pingan laugh dumbly. Qin Pingan came today to discuss the construction of a quarry, cutting wood, and buying river sand. Of course they are not ordinary wood and stone. Only the ancient sandalwood in Zongyia's Prince's Mountain is unique in Baoping. Zhou's reputation is second only to Yuzhang Damu. It was the first choice for palace pillars and ceremonial ceremonies in central countries in the early years. The Zhuang dynasty set up a procurement office at the foot of the mountain, and it has been monopolized by the royal palace for mining. It is not sold by tree, but sold by the caddy every inch of gold. Previously, Cui Dongshan had negotiated with Jin Qing about his intentions, but failed to negotiate the price, so he had to let the husband go out in person. Almost everywhere in Tangyi's house to the south are ruins, and the country is gradually being restored. There is a huge demand for the wood and stone sand from the immortal family on the mountain. Of course, there are also Tangyi's house, which is vast and rich in resources, but it is not easy to mine. The family also needs to restore the Patriarch Hall. It must first rebuild its own fairy mansion. In addition, the fact that Tangyi's house mountain is wider than the mountain has become a common practice, vying to be the victim, even if the belt is tightened, or with people to borrow on credit. All imperial palaces and local cities must be built more magnificently than before the war. Xiaomo was watching his son quietly, chatting and laughing with a mountain monarch and a county guard, and there was nothing to worry about the price, as if Shanjun Jinqing was just waiting for his son to show his face. The three things of quarrying, logging and riverbed digging of rock and sand, there is no need to send a supervisor on the Luopishan side. Jinqing only reassures Qin Shanju that there is no need to lose his family for a few gods. Zongyi's face. Qin Pingan smiled and nodded and said yes. For no reason, I thought of a Xinjia sect who might have been out of the house without turning over the almanac, and finally moved from the Beiyue boundary in Weibo to Zhongyue, and as a result he met Shanjun Jinqing and hosted a night outing. Is really an unexpected joy that can make your eyes full of tears. Wind Kite Ferry continues to travel south. Zhongqiu and Lu Baixiang, two fellow villagers from Fudi, they meet again after a long absence, and they meet for a few games. Xiao Mo is watching the game from the sidelines, watching the chess without talking about the real gentleman. Stayed for a long time and heard the sound of chess pieces falling, and there was a quiet sound. In a room, Yu slanted back to sit cross-legged, breathing out his sword, and Cui Wei was watching the flow of his disciple's qi, looking for subtle flaws. Pei Qian is on the stern side teaching Zhao Xuxia boxing. There is so little meaning to teach on behalf of teachers. Zhao Xuxia specializes in boxing practice, and only works the top of Shanshan boxing. Now it is the bottleneck of Wufu in the 5 realms. The realm is not low but not high. Is not low, it is relative to the average pure martial arts, not high, it is compared to the master's fall. Whether it is the predecessors Zhu Lian planting autumn, Lu Baixiang, Wei Xian, or Pei Qian, Xin Yuanji, and Yuan Baoyuan from his peers, Zhao Shuxia's martial arts journey for so many years seems extremely ordinary and there is no suspense. Qualifications are at the bottom. Especially in the face of great master Pei Qian, who is also a direct disciple of master, Zhao Xuxia inevitably feels embarrassed. Teaching punches without feeding them is tantamount to be busy. Compared with each other, but Pei Qian's shot was very measured, whether it was a fist, an elbow, or a kick, even if it was clicked, it seemed like a dragonfly, but Pei Qian's pressure would still make Zhao Xuxia suffer. When Pei Qian stopped his fist, Zhao Shuxia's face was pale, his arms trembled and he was shaking. Both sides take a step back and hold their fists to each other. Pei Qian said softly, "Junior brother Zhao, your fists and feet are a bit rigid." The person who handed the fist dared to die, but the fist was not alive. After all, it was almost meaningless. After all, is the same school, so Pei Qian still restrained when speaking, and used his words carefully so as not to hurt the self-esteem of this junior. Zhao Xuxia is not a stupid person. In fact, he knows the good intentions of senior sister Pei. Pei Qian fed him punches, it was a waste of her time. Pei Qian hesitated and said, "Junior brother Zhao, your boxing spirit is actually very good. You got the meaning of positive, so keep working hard." The 6-step walking pile under Zhao Shu has already walked well. But Wu Fu asked the boxing, after all it was not equal to the fight with the boxing method, so even if Zhao Xuxia competed with the same realm Wu Fu, it was far from an advantage. It is even more extravagant to ask people to cross the border. But Pei Qian is puzzled. Why does master seem to deliberately not teach Zhao Xuxia some brilliant boxing techniques? Chai Wu finished drinking 2 bowls of wine today, and stacked 2 white bowls on the table. The little girl belched a drink, began to practice, and continued to refine the flying sword named Xuanhuan. Before, the mountain master personally taught her a refining fairy tactic, but the knowledge is too advanced, the number of words is too many, and they are all unheard vocabulary. She is like drinking high dizzy. In the end, the mountain lord asked Mr. Xiao Mo, who gave the flying sword, to come over and chat with herself. After chatting for a while, she roughly understood it. Just use a snack to spread the breath like a spider web. The big deal is distraction at the same time. Take 7 or 8 roads and it will be done. Anyway, Mr. Xiao Mo said those routes truthfully. Someone helped to guide the way. Chai Wu just needs to do it. It's no different from learning origami at the Xiangzhu shop. Chen Pingan sat in Zhang Jiazhen's accountant. Nailan Jade Slip is here to help with the mess. The little girl sits on a chair, shaking her head, flipping the account book with one hand, and crackling with a small abacus in one hand. From Wei Wenlong to Zhang Jiazhen, and then to Nailan Yubi, only Mr. Accountant Luopishan is indeed coming out in large numbers, and there is no worry about being unreliable. Chen Pingan rubbed his eyebrows with a look of helplessness. He had previously taught the little girl how to refine objects and repeated the formula twice. 1 question and 1 answer. Have you understood? Do not understand. Have you remembered the content? Can't remember. In the end, Chen Pingan could only move rescue soldiers and called for Xiao Mo to help preach for the little girl. Chen Pingan sat aside, watching Xiao Mo, and Chai was questioning and nodding, The mountain owner was so shocked that he could only drink silently and was overwhelmed. Finally understand. Only cultivating geniuses and cultivating geniuses can talk. Just like Ning Yao taught Chen Pingan boxing in the early years, different positions just as helpless. Nalan Yudi asked curiously. His lord hidden officer, the sandalwood on Zongyia's side takes up a lot of space, that's all. After all, sandalwood is valuable, but the two objects produced by the quarry and the riverbed are heavy and heavy. Occupying space, the price is also difficult to get up. The wind kite is a transcontinental ferry. Alas, the cost is too high to transport it all the way from the middle of Aquarius Chao to Tongye Chao. Will we lose money? Why not let the shorter distance turn over? Mo ferry does this business? Chen Pingan smiled, turned his head and looked at Zhang Jiajin. Jiajin, you can help UD to explain the reason. Zhang Jiajin said, today all countries in Tongyishao are waiting to be thriving and everything is lacking, but the most urgent thing is definitely not the clean offerings, antique calligraphy and painting, but the civil reconstruction of the capital of a country. So we are not earning money at the moment, but a sum of money for the future. In addition, if we have a good relationship with those emperors and kings, establish long-term business relations, and pave the way for Fengyuan Ferry, we will not worry about the opportunity to make big money in the future. We can even buy the useless things that Aquarius Island and Beiju Luzhou are willing to buy at a very low price from the generals of all countries at a very low price. Each has its own inclination. If you take these factors into account, you will find that this Zhongyue transaction between the Hermit Lord and Sect Master Cui is not only cost-effective, but also extremely profitable. Qin Pingan nodded and said, that's exactly what happened. Real money is of course important for buying and selling, but at the same time, you also need to understand a truth, see big money outside the account books. Nalan Yuzu's eyes gleamed, learned. Qin Pingan smiled and said, finally, there is a shortage of gold and silver at the foot of the Tongyishao mountain, and a lack of money from the gods on the mountain. Therefore, it is indispensable to borrow money to earn favor. Nalan Yugu asked, lending usury? Who dares not to repay the money? Let me Jiangxian come to the door to cut people and chop his hands. Zhang Jiajin actually wants to know the answer because nowadays, many forces from other continents are doing this kind of thing on Tongyishao, which is a hugely profitable business. Qin Pingan shook his head. Everyone else does it, we don't do it. Nalan Yuzhu thought for a while and said anxiously, will the tree attract the wind? Will it arouse hatred and isolation? Qin Pingan smiled and said, so I need me Jiangxian to sit down in the house. Zhang Jiajin suddenly stood up, straightened his clothes, and clasped his fists silently with the hidden officer. The monarch of a country and the gods on the mountain borrowed usury, how will it be repaid? Naturally, it is evenly distributed to the people. Qin Pingan double-clicked on Zhang Jiajing, and then began to read the ledger. We will continue to do our own things. Some of the products in the blessed land of lotus root flowers, such as the beauty of the Fulu in the Fox country, because now there is no fight between the three forces of the Fox country, they are some old foxes who have died after the soldiers are disbanded. The number is rare but the ranks much higher. Moreover, Cui Dongshan mentioned something in the letter. By coincidence, he found 3 monks from Shiyalu and Yezigang, Tongyishao. They were young, all over 100 years old when the Yezigang sect was destroyed. The 3 of them happened to be traveling abroad, and they were lucky enough to escape, so that the beauty of Fulu and Shiyalu's crown was not cut off. Although the craftsmanship of these 3 disciples is much inferior to those of the 2 masters of Shi Corridor, the problem is not big. The 3 disciples only need to draw beauties. Cui Dongshan and the old cook can complete the final finishing touch. In addition, I only talk about purchasing porcelain made in the kilns of my hometown and small town, as well as cockfighting cups, lichens and other items that need to be negotiated in Sai country. The specific quantity ratio needs to be detailed again and again according to the subsequent sales situation. Adjustments such as some goods that have high profits, but occupy a large area, or are easy to accumulate goods. Qin Pingan is clear about these relatively trivial details. After all, on this matter, in the account room of Chun Banzai and Fallen Mountain, all of them are experts. Even the Mi Jiangxian with the table by the door and the handle of the summer palace are not laymen. Doing business is actually 2 things: traversing the mountains and wading through the water. The so-called traversing mountains and ridges is nothing more than breaking the local trade barriers, and then testing the depth of the flow of money. There are also the rare books in Tongyishao that are scattered around. Qin Pingan has already seen it on the Kashandu side. There are also many noble official kills that were hailed as a daughter in the past. They are similar to those books. They are all sold in 1 sack, and they are piled up everywhere at major ferry crossings, and shops are not rare to bargain. However, this kind of missed opportunity in another 10 or 20 years at most, will surely gradually disappear and become the saying that the troubled time is golden and flourishing. In the early morning of this day, a red sun jumped out of the sea. The wind comes to the surface, sit and watch the clouds rise. The word lazy, the thief of standing. Xianxia was walking 6 steps in the house and suddenly there was a knock on the door, and when he opened the door it was Master. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Go walk with me." The master and apprentice went to the bow together. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "For so many years apart from shaking mountain fist, I haven't taught you more fist moves. I will make up today." Qin Pingan today taught Zhang Shanfeng's own set of boxing techniques. Xianxia still has to learn something, but it is a pity that he has learned something that resembles a god. Qin Pingan helped to check the missing and fill in the vacancies. Xianxia looked guilty and whispered, "Master, I have poor qualifications and I am embarrassed. Is in the Luapa mountain, otherwise it will be placed on any mountain fairy house or jianghu martial arts, there must be a few gossips or playful sight." On the side of Luapa mountain, no one chewed their tongues behind their backs because they were all told in person, such as Chen Lingjun and Bai Xian. Every time they met, the boy in Tsingyi who likes to throw his sleeves and crackle, would have a few old-fashioned warnings. Under the tree you can't be slacking about practicing boxing. Look at us, Pei Chen, that realm is whoosh, it's no problem, I'm going to teach you a few masterpieces today, centipede jumps, don't know, optimistic. As for Bai Xian, Zhao every time he passed by the pavilion stall under the tree, Bai Xian would greet him to go in and sit down for a cup of tea. Disappointed, don't be stunned, drink tea and drink tea, my tea is similar to the drink in the shop in the hometown of Master Hermit, and it can raise the realm after drinking. Actually, the two uncles Chen Lingjun and Bai Xian made such a fuss, which made Xianxia feel a lot better instead of being so anxious when practicing boxing. Chen Pingyan angrily smiled and said, "What kind of things are you talking about?" Patted Xiaoxu's shoulder again, "You don't need to believe in your martial arts talent, but you must believe in the eyes of Master accepting apprentices. Saiji Mountains Wuxialu. The wind and kite ferry is anchored here. It is no coincidence that a book is made. The pavilion is the place where Shanjun Fanjun Mao and the Shanshan Wangwan entertain guests. Chen Pingyan took Xiao Mo, Chen Lingjun and old God Jia, settled down here. The old Nanyue of Dei, which was once made of genuine goods, was built on the ground, and now the new Nanyue is exactly the same. Led by the Dali dynasty, dozens of large and small countries around the old Nanyue site worked together to facilitate this matter. After all, a large mountain was needed to help stabilize the transportation of mountains and rivers in the south of a continent. However, since ancient times, there has been an unwritten and exquisite, change the capital without changing the 5 sacred mountains. One continent is the Great Li dynasty of one country. After losing half of the mountains and rivers, a compromise was taken. One continent and 5 sacred mountains remain the same. Whoever went to worship in the territory of the country. So now Nanyue Fanjun Mao became the first and only Deiyue mountain monarch to break away from the jurisdiction of the Song clan of Dei. In Fanjun Mao's words, it's just one word, cool. After a great battle, in fact, the entire Nanyue was destroyed by half, and then half was evacuated. Among the several mountains of the Prince of Nanyue, only Tsaiji Mountain was lucky enough to save most of it, as the temporary immortal ferry crossing set up by the monster army. First, as a result, Tsaiji Mountain, as one of the few mountains in the southern part of Aquarius, has become more and more under one mountain and above 10,000 mountains. On the side of the pavilion, Fan Junmao in a dark green robe sat cross-legged and saw Chen Pingan and his party. He just raised his hands and clasped his fists to make a point. The Mountain King's family members of Tsaiji Mountain are luxurious attire with a crown on their heads and purple-clothed elephants. The crown is decorated with orbs, which are as big as green plums. At first glance they are a treasure on the mountain. If ordinary people don't know the truth and see these two at first sight, they will definitely mistake Wang Chuan as Deiyue Mountain monarch, and Fan Junmao is just a female deity at the temple. Wang Wan also participated in the ceremony at Jingyang Mountain and stayed at Buyun Peak. At that time, the gods of the mountains gathered together and confronted the water gods' banquet at the neighboring peak. At that time, on the side of Shanzhu Mountain in Jingyang, the flying sword was spreading like a flower, and Wang Jun received a secret letter from Chen Pingan, and also received a seal-carved great blue rain-phased jade plate, which was handed over to Fan Shanjun. Getting the reminder, at the end of the secret letter, Wang Wan left Jingyang Mountain quickly. Fan Junmao leaned against the railing and said straightforwardly, Let's talk about it. How can I repay this kindness? Qin Pingan smiled and said, it's really not a debt collection, it's just a recollection of the past. After the big deal at the transition of the fairy road, you Mountain Monarch and King Mountain God just take care of them. Fan Junmao said, don't come to this set. If you don't come to look for me, I will look for you too. After all, there must be a charter. I don't want to be distracted to snap off a fairy for 100 years and 1,000 years, and there is no end to the bastard. Qin Pingan nodded and said, then I will open the skylight to speak brightly. As long as all the treasures of the heavens, materials and earth within the jurisdiction of the gods in Nanyue are peddled and willing to buy and sell, I will score a share in the Lost Mountain, at least 30%, and must the price is fair, starting with the lowest market price. Fan Junmao waved his hand. It's settled. Even if you drink, I will stay at my next night banquet on the mountain, and it will be enough. Once Fan Junmao enters the Yupu realm, you have to organize night banquets as usual. Qin Pingan smiled and said, there is one more thing to ask. I want to ask Wang Shanshan to buy the secluded soil of Xishan, about 3,000 caddies. Of course, the more the better the price. The secluded soil of Caiji Mountain is a kind of Wanyan soil. It is extremely famous in Aquarius Island. It is the foundation stone for the heroic and feminine to open up the small world of the Taoist temple. Therefore, when the king's golden body lord evacuated Caiji Mountain, the Dai dynasty specially helped to relocate all the secluded soil, and never left it to the monster army. Fan Junmao wanted to wave his hand again. Wang Wan hurriedly reminded him in his heart, Mr. Fan Shan, the secluded soil of Caiji Mountain, the Song clan of Dai has successively taken away half of it in the previous years, and now there is not much left. I only have 20,000 caddies on my side. Mr. Fan Shan, it is clear that if this secluded soil is less than 10,000 caddies in size, it will not become a climate. It is extremely difficult to cultivate new soil, but it may decrease year by year. Fan Junmao hesitated for a while, still waved his big hand and said to Qin Pingan, I still have 10,000 caddies over there. Take them all. There is nothing that is not priceless. No matter how precious the soil is, it can't compare to that jade metal. This thing is exactly the opportunity for Fan Junmao to re-enter the Jade Realm. Wang Wan returned to Caiji Mountain earlier and immediately donated 10,000 caddies of secluded soil to Nanyue. In fact, a few years ago the prince of Caiji Mountain was very embarrassed because after a great battle, Nanyue was completely defeated, and there was a pattern of the great Prince Xianxia, which made the king's golden figure rank. After returning to the nascent Soul Realm, I didn't dare to hold a night banquet. Otherwise, the promotion of rank would be a trivial matter for a great mountain crown prince. Can only wait for Shanjun Fan Junmao to restore his realm, and then hold a night banquet together. Fortunately, Fan Shanjun will be able to return to Yupu soon. Qin Pingan looked down on the realm of monks anymore and couldn't help but envy a little. These prominent 5 sacred spirits really didn't need to practice much. Fan Junmao didn't give Qin Pingan a chance to say anything polite and asked, You and Wei Bo wear a pair of trousers, so I also have something to beg of you. Please Beiwe send some familiar servants and maids to Nanyue. That night banquet was the first time the elder girl got on the sedan chair. Could not be done too badly. This kind of thing is Beiyu's most experienced and recognized by Ijo. Qin Pingan, this kind of thing will never be embarrassing. Right? It's really not. Fan Junmao's joking. The immortal family celebration is the most troublesome. The genealogical master and the landscape gods, as well as the seat arrangement of Xianggongqing, the place to stay, the drinks, fruits and vegetables, are a mess of trivial matters. Qin Pingan smiled and nodded and agreed, this kind of thing is not difficult at all. We Wei Shanjun are first-class experts. Fan Junmao glanced at the blind old Taoist man in fancy dress, turned his head and said to the mountain Caiji, in the future you will have a lot of exchanges with the second manager of the Wind Kite Fairy. Wang Wan nodded with a smile. As for the 10,000 jin of secluded soil that Fan Shanjun sent out today, there is no big problem. When Nanyue holds a night banquet celebration, another 10,000 jin will be sent out from Caiji Mountain. Fan Junmao then stubbornly accompanies Qin Pingan and the others to climb the mountain and explore the scenery. The old Jia and the king of the mountain have a very happy conversation. Reconstruction of the old Dragon City ruins, the reconstruction is in full swing, and there are huge constructions and dust everywhere. Qin Pingan, Sun Jiashu and Dong Shuijing met on the shore of the sea. In addition to Xiao Mo, there is also Mi de Jianxian who rarely appears outside the ferry. After talking about the business, it is of course the old rules to pull them into the group and make money across continents together. There used to be a lotus pond here. This is the first time Miyu has set foot on land in the awe-inspiring world. The scenery he saw at first glance is especially impressive. Miyu tentatively asked, "Can you plant 10-mile lotus again?" Sun Jiashu nodded and said yes, but Miyu was shocked when he heard the amount of money from the gods. It was far more than his own estimate, and suddenly no idea of borrowing money from the hermit. Sun Jiashu explained with a smile, "It's not unusual to plant lotus on the sea. The lotus is planted by the immortals. It costs more to maintain it. In the past it was all taken the lead by the Fu family, and the rest of the families contributed money together, which is a facade for spending money to earn a face." Miyu sighed, "Money is a heroic courage and there are really not a lot of fairy money in his pocket, so don't swell your face and fill you up." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "We are ready to pay this money." Miyu was a little embarrassed and immediately said in his heart, "His nobleman goodbye, I just said casually, don't spend this injustice." Sun Jiashu nodded and smiled, "The two things of buying lotus and lotus can be paid by me Jianxian. After that, the old and new Longqing surnames will be responsible for the maintenance. I will help find someone to discuss the matter. I believe there will be nothing. Objection. The rice from the Great Wall of Jianxi wants to plant lotus flowers here and rebuild the fairy ruins. Who would dare to say nothing about the walls and grasses in the old dragon city except the Fu family? At that time, it is estimated that the old dragon city will have to erect a monument to record the matter." Ziran Miyu. Sun Jiashu knows Qin Shan's intentions. Killed 2 birds with 1 stone, letting his second seat enshrine Miyu fulfill his wish, and at the same time it was considered a small favor to the Sun family. Nowadays several big families have their own backers. Unlike the previous Fu family, they are all attached to the officialdom of the Dali court. Therefore the intrigue between each other is intensified. Sun Jiashu raised this matter and can help. Save a lot of trouble for your own family. The truth couldn't be simpler. Now the mountain ally of the Sun family is the Luapa mountain. In the past few years the Sun family has always been in possession of the partnership with Luapashan, but now it is no longer needed. A ferry across continents. The vast sea between the 2 continents is a battlefield. Thousands of miles away from the land on the sea surface, from time to time there will be monks who use water-saving techniques and enter the sea to salvage magic weapons. Before this matter was banned by the Dali dynasty, the court specially sent a group of monks with the army and Mr. Qingwu to search for the treasures left in the sea. Any harvest must be confiscated from the Song clan's treasury. The ban was just lifted not long ago. There were hundreds of monks from Ao Pingzhou and Tong Yizhou. They moved by the wind and swarmed, and there were many well-informed people who had been lying on the old Dragon City ruins. I'm dead, although I'm destined to not pick up the big leak after all, it has been repeatedly searched by the Dali monk, but after Dallas ban many people have already made a fortune. The old Longqing surnames have special monks to buy such treasures. And sold it casually and made a lot of money. Miyu subconsciously turned his head and glanced at the hidden officer next to him. The true master of this kind of activity is standing by his side. Those gash trainers who try their luck to pick up the rags have to recognize an ancestor. If they come here first to give a sage, maybe they will have some unexpected gains. Xuanhuan immediately squinted his eyes. Mi Jianxian looked sad. There were a few monks in the sea. They saw the Fengyuan ferry boat and hurried to Yufeng. It was a group of monks from Tonggishao. They really made money here, so they wanted to take the boat back to their hometown. Otherwise, Yufeng crossed the sea, it was too hard and there were many accidents. The monk spoke, but it was Aquarius Yayan, which is Dali Mandarin. No way, it's different now. If you don't speak this Dali Mandarin, you won't be able to mix up here at Old Dragon City. I heard that it was a private ferry from Luapa Mountain. Don't say anything offends, say goodbye. Qin Lingjun saw this scene and laughed loudly. He laughed so much that his stomach hurts. The shadow of the famous Tree of Man. A mountain sect who likes to demolish people's ancestors' hall, is aptly called to watch the ceremony and congratulate, but it is actually a domineering questioning sword. The only one in Beipingzu, it is no different from that of Beiju Luzhou. Qingjian's family sect, this seems to be the first case in the history of Aquarius. Above this sea, if you can't reach the village before and the shop, you still take a boat? Take the initiative to board the thief boat and enter the bandit's den, isn't it? Be careful to board the ship, but not to disembark. This made the old fairy Jia, who was useless, both gratified and regrettable. Fortunately, the prestigious broadcast of his own mountain gate, unfortunately, the other party did not understand his own hospitality. The outline of the land of Tonggishao can be seen vaguely by Fengyuan ferry. Soon in one night, the ferry arrived at the Qingjingshan ferry in the north of Yizhou. Chen Pinggan took Pei Qian and his party to visit the Qinghu Palace on Tianke Peak. Previously, the Ancestor Hall was moved to Beipingzu, and the old Yuan Ing Lu Yong became the second-class worship of the Dai dynasty. Legend has it that it has a close relationship with Song Mu, the king of the Dai domain, and has a personal friendship. Last time, Chen Pinggan gave the stamp of Qingjing as the bottom of one party. The old sovereign Jiang of Yuguizang and the chief Zhou of Luopishan also sent a word from the old god. There is a Lu Yong in Tonggishao, which is equivalent to adding a sect that stands tall in the eyes of the monks in Haoran. After that, Lu Yong picked a good time and consumed a portion of Qingjing Mountain's natural luck. In the end, his luck was quite good. He successfully made 2 furnaces of Zhuangdan, and gave it to Yi Yanyan's Pu Shangyun. In Chaotang, the old Jinren made an exception and did not hide privately. He never secretly ignorant 2 or 3 tablets in accordance with the old rules. In fact, Yi Yunyun, according to expectations, was able to spend a lot of money to buy a stove, which was considered a great surprise. As a result, 2 furnaces were given away for nothing, and she was a direct disciple of the master of the Qinghu Palace. She personally sent it to the Pu Shangyun thatched cottage. Yi Yunyun, who has never liked to treat people, treats guests personally. This woman is a martial artist who wants to follow that in advance. It was the agreement of a Master Chow to buy the priceless Hei Maru of these 2 furnaces at the market price on the mountain. Unexpectedly, the Jindan Taoist of the Blue Tiger Palace insisted not to collect any money, and regardless of what this female master, who was known as Huang Yiyun, was a martial artist, the Taoist just insisted on one thing: either Pushun thatched cottage was taken for nothing, or he brought it with him back. Anyway, Zhuangdan from Qinghu Palace, I really don't have to worry about selling it. It can be worthy of the saying, the only one in the world, but it is hard to find. This pill is extremely difficult to make, because in addition to the secret technique of alchemy from the teacher in the Qinghu Palace, there are also vital materials for blind alchemy. It is the unique mountain and water aura of Qingjing Mountain, so it is a panacea that Ijo Dixian dreamed of in the past years, otherwise it would not be the queen gift of Tonggishao Patriarch Hall. Each time Lu Yong succeeded in alchemy in his early years, he would deliberately knock off 1 or 2 pills and give them to Taiping Mountain for nothing. Anyway, the number of pills for a furnace ordered by those sects has never been fixed. Selling to the major sects on a continent, that is to make money plus the love of earning incense. Bailey gift to Taiping Mountain, that is the chivalrous wind of admiring the heavenly monarch and the mountain lord. Because of an old grudge, Lu Yong was recognized as the most disgusting land among the monks of the continent. That's why Yi Yunyun was so surprised. Chen Pinggan today recounted the past with the old gods. He was a little embarrassed. Brother Lu, I may need to book a meal with you and forget it. It will be fine within 10 years. Because this pill can help chi practitioners warm up their minds, sort out and remove various subtle hidden dangers in the human body, and for Chen Pinggan, who is now in a terrible fall, sitting in the Green Tiger Palace with the forget pill is just the right medicine, so it may be compared any rare pill will have a timely reign. It's definitely not the icing on the cake, it's a veritable gift in the snow. Otherwise Chen Pinggan really couldn't open this mouth. One continent, Yuguizang, Xianxia, Jindingguan, Dequan dynasty etc. all sought pill. Not to mention the Aquarius Island in the north, as well as the residences of the kings of Dali, the Taoist temples of the gods, the old Longqing Fu family, and the immortal Chao Rong. According to the established arrangement, let alone 100 or 200 years, Lu Yong will not be free for 300 years. But Lu Yong smiled heartily. It's not a coincidence, there are still a few pieces left in the hands of poor Dao, so I will take it to Brother Chen. It was originally intended to be given to a few direct and repassed disciples as a gift for the opening of the peak in the future. In the past few years I followed myself all the way and worked hard. In Aquarius Island, from beginning to end, when I first encountered difficulties I lost my eyes. When the matter of making alchemy for the Dalibian army free of charge, Feng Shui turned around and became highly respected. Many Aquarius Island immortal palaces and Qinghu Palace passed or implied or explicitly stated that they wanted to recruit them and change their divisions, but they never had anything. One wants to leave the Qinghu Palace Patriarch Hall's genealogy. Knowing that young Master Chen himself wanted to take Wang Dan, the last time he gave 2 stoves to Yi Yunyun for free he was not so sincere. As soon as Chen Pinggan was about to speak, the old man raised his palm and complained, "Stop, if I see foreign words I will stop mentioning it. It hurts his family's friendship in vain." Chen Pinggan smiled and said, "If you have any needs for the reconstruction of the Green Tiger Palace, Brother Lu can just make a list, and Feng Kite Fairy can help buy it. This transaction has the purpose of not losing money or making money. Lu Yong laughed and said, only this matter involves the face of the teacher, I will not be polite with Brother Qin. Then Lu Yong took the initiative to invite Luopishan and his party to go out to enjoy the scenery. Twilight Autumn Mountain Trip. The sky is wind and the moon is dazzling and the sound of lingling jade chime. A group of people went down the mountain to board the boat, and the ferry continued south. Finally, I arrived at the next sect that Cui Dongshan personally chose. Cui Dongshan Chao Sunny. On the right of Sui, the little cook Qing Chaolu, Xiaopoxian Menglong Shirqiu, have been waiting here for a long time at the ferry. Near there are also a large group of talismans puppets, and they are working tirelessly to expand the ferry. The name of Xiaozong is still up in the air. And Cui Dongshan chose this place. It is not a land of landscapes, but it occupies an area of 600 miles, located on the border between the two countries. There are no landscape gods around. The nearest one is a temple with 1,000 years of history, Yuhang County Guide. It seems that Cui Dongshan deliberately chose a poor place. He wants to start from scratch. Cui Dongshan became more determined after receiving the reminder from the letter sent by Mr. Gott from Dali Capital, because at the beginning, according to the deduction plan of this pair of students and Chief Zhou, the next site was chosen to disrupt the Jinding Temple's 7th. The twofold plan of now too hidden, not only wanted to keep the incense of Taiping Mountain where no one was in the world, and not to be occupied by Xianxia, but also to prevent the alliance between Jindingwan and Qinghu Palace as much as possible. It's just that the former is a top priority while the latter is optional. There is a huge collection of books in the Summer Palace, among which there are 24 volumes of Taoist Yunji 7 signs, and among them are the Sun, Moon and Stars department. A Taoist temple on the hilltop is just a candidate for the sect. Du Hanliang is just the master of a monk in the nascent soul realm. Once the formation of the Big Dipper, Jiasuk and Bielyang is completed, the Golden Summit view is equivalent to covering a small half of Tongishis astronomical geography and landscape. But since there was a plan by the Lu family of the Middle-earth Yin and Yang family, Cui Dongshan simply gave up the plan to stock from it. He wanted to take a good look at it. The Golden Summit views of Taiping Mountain and Qingjing Mountain were no longer there. Du Hanliang in the end can toss out a magnificent Dharma heaven and earth. Two groups of people meet. The young man in white clothes with a red mole on the eyebrows and chin pingan touched to the bottom. After getting up, he bent over again, raised his head and smiled, sincerely thanks Xiaomo for offering it. Xiaomo made a polite return. Xiaomo has seen sect master Cui. Everyone walked to a high mountain together, and Qin Pingan chatted with Cui Dongshan. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, on the Golden Summit view, you can't be said to be careless. I don't have any thoughts about Taiping Mountain and Qinghu Palace. I closed it very quickly. Only a little dragon is left. I don't know the seriousness of the stakes and continue. Thinking of gathering the remnants of Taoist rhyme near Taiping Mountain and refining it into the moon mirror passed down by the Taiping Mountain ancestors. As a result, Huang Ting returned from the colorful world inexplicably and asked the sword for a round. The Patriarch Hall was demolished. The female crown sister, I didn't stop, I actually lived next to the ruins of the Patriarch Hall. Huang Ting, the female champion of Taiping Mountain, actually came down from the colorful sky to the Howran world together with Guizhuzhou. Only one went to Aquarius Island and the other returned to his hometown of Tongishao. Qin Pingan laughed at himself. I was the one who frightened the snake. Before Qin Pingan went to Taiping Mountain, he started to make a lot of noise and made a secret affair. He killed Han Yushu, the lord of the Wanyao sect in Sanshan Blessed Land. After that, I went to the Green Tiger Palace with Jiang Shangshan. Du Hanliang must have received the news. After weighing the pros and cons, Jin Dingguan could only retreat to the second place, greatly reducing the rank of the great array of Fatian Elephant and Earth. If you put aside the foregone conclusion of the hostile relationship, Du Hanliang really can be called a hero. The Daquan dynasty's Peach Leaf Alliance, Jinding Temple in the north, Bailong Cave in the middle, and Pushun Thatched Cottage in the south were all sponsors. In the end, a total of 16 immortal houses on the mountain dominated the Tongyer Island. The 34 vassal powers of the Upper Vassal have jointly concluded an alliance and jointly confronted the forces of other continents in name. Because Yi Yunyun didn't care but just wore a virtual title, Jindingwan and Bailongdong, after the Peach and Leaf Alliance, the two immortals were hailed as the monarch on the mountain and the prime minister in the mountain respectively. Cui Dongshan stood at the foot of the mountain, pointed a finger and said, Sir, you must wait for you to come here before you can erect the mountain gate. You may need to cut the ribbon at that time. Qin Pingan couldn't laugh or cry, and Luopishan didn't have such trouble back then. Qin Pingan suddenly said, "The next celebration will be the day of the beginning of spring next year." Cui Dongshan gave a hum. Beginning of spring, the beginning of the 4 o'clock, the head of 1 year old, the rising of Yangqi, and the beginning of all things. Cui Dongshan whispered, "Sir, it's like hanging images. How do you say it? Who can I paint?" Because it is the next sect, so when hanging a statue in the ancestor hall, you have to start hanging the portrait of the ancestor Zonkai in accordance with the rules of the mountain. And it must be suspended in the center. Qin Pingan was a little helpless, looking at Cui Dongshan. "Can we really make an exception?" Cui Dongshan shook his head vigorously, categorically saying, "Sir, really can't make an exception." Sword of Coming Chapter 891. Qin Pingan deliberately chose Li Dong's day, and the ferry docked for the next sect. Cui Dongshan built a few huts at the gate of the mountain, moved out a few tables and went up and down 2 cases. There were a lot of people. A shopkeeper busy with xianxia over the stove in the beginning of winter, a bowl of dumplings, a bowl of tonic soup, also known as ground root soup, is made from the roots of various plants, which is auspicious. The nearby materials are not some immortal products. On each table there is a dish of soy and vinegar condiments, and a large dish of pickled isitis when the frost is falling. As for the drinks, I'm sorry, if you want to drink it you can change it yourself. Our next sect is now too poor. There were 5 people sitting on a main table. Qin Pingan, the owner of Shangzong's Luopa Mountain. Daohao Lingchen's down-and-out mountain palm law is long-lived. There are also the 3 largest temporary officials of the next sect. The first Lord Cui Dongshan, who is in charge of the autumn planting, and the next sect is in charge of Cui Wei. Cui Wei was originally unwilling to sit at the main table and wanted to give up his position to Miyu, who was about to serve as the chief priest of the next sect. But Lord Shanju took his arm and did not let go. Cui Wei had to admit his fate. Yu Xian, who was sitting at the other table, looked back at Cui Wei and the child pouted. He was able to drink at the same table with the hermit. It's not a rare thing on the Great Wall of Jianxi, but there are not many when it comes to Haoran. However, Yu Xihui seemed to be in a better mood, took a chopstick dumpling and took a big mouthful of tonic soup. Cui Wei was keenly aware of this slight change in the direct disciple, and looked at the young hermit with a rare smile. Qin Pingan nodded in greeting, trifling. Which child in the world would not want his father or master to be an indomitable husband who has a card when he goes out? Qin Pingan's direct disciple sat at a table, but it was actually more than Chao Sunny on the previous ferry. Cui Dongshan took the last seat, clasped his fist and said, "Inherit Xingshua, General Affairs, Initial Creation, Lack of Characters and Creation of the Night." Qin Lingjun asked softly, "Meet Cixi, what do you mean?" Miyu asked back, "Ask me? What do you mean?" The 2 jokes stared at each other with big eyes. The old fairy Jia on the side said with a smile, "The general idea of sect Master Cui is that this sect is inherited from the previous sect, that is, the orthodox origin of the Luopa Mountain incense. It is now in the early stage of preparations. There are not many people and poor materials. It's hard to avoid being sloppy. I hope you can forgive me." Naturally, our sovereign Cui said that he was too self-effacing. He only talked about the pickled winter cabbage on the table and the royal kitchen craftsmanship in the palace, but that's it. Miyu asked curiously, "Brother Jia, have you been in the palace?" Qin Lingjun grinned. Mi De Jiangxian asked this question well. Jia Xing smiled and said, "A good guy doesn't mention the courage of the past, and it doesn't matter if you don't talk about it, let alone the past of the poor Dao, to say it will only laugh generously." Qin Lingjun chuckled and said, "When Brother Jia was young, he was a gentleman with a reputation for imperial examinations. He was a jiangshi master who had eaten the Qianglin banquet. He also published poetry collections. Later he abandoned his pen to join the army and joined the army. Xingwu spent many years on the battlefield and made great achievements. According to Chief Zhou, he can get a good posthumous post. It is just that Jia waited until the world was peaceful at the foot of the mountain, and he had met the emperor, so he didn't have anything. Yes, I hid my merits and fame deeply and traveled everywhere, and later I received 2 high disciples, Deng Gao and Zhou'er, and met our master at first sight, and became the worship master of Luopa Mountain." Jia Xing laughed and said, "It was revealed that Mi Cixi laughed." Qin Pingan turned his head and smiled and asked, "Jia Zhufeng and these vulgar past deeds? Why haven't I heard you say it before?" Old immortal Jia hurriedly held a bowl in both hands, replacing the wine with soup. "I don't have the shame to brag about the merits on the side of the mountain owner, and the ugliness of the family should not be exposed. This shows how suspicious the owner of his own mountain is not to use, and to employ people without any doubt. What a not tacky. The comment of the mountain owner is very sophisticated, with a few words, which is better than 1,000 words of flowers. Qin Pingan turned his head and glanced at the mountain road. It was vaguely visible that it was the Shinto form of burning incense and respect, and asked, "The predecessor of the mountain under our feet is the site of the 5 sacred mountains of a certain country?" Cui Dongshan nodded and smiled. Mr. has eyes like torches. It is indeed the students who had spent a lot of effort to relocate this mountain all the way. The mountain is very sinking. The top of the mountain is the old Nanyue of the old northern Jin kingdom. The temple and the golden body of the gods are no longer there. They were defeated by the monsters in that battle, and the land was ruined by the wild world, and there was no precious treasure left in the mountains, so now there are only leftovers. I'm so empty and want to return to the mountainous style of the past. I have no other choice but to spend money and then spend money. This is also the reason why the new emperor of the northern Jin dynasty made his move so quickly. I happened to pass by this mountain at the time and felt that I had a good eye for it. Later I asked De Kuan-Yao to help match the bridge. Li Shiling Li, who is the uncle of today's son, worked hard. Personally accompanied me to the Beijing capital of the northern Jin dynasty. Cost me 50 grains of rain. The new monarch was generous, suggesting whether I would be willing to round up the old 5 mountains, and the 200 grains of rain would be able to buy all of it. I was almost moved. It's similar to the original dragon boat in Luapa Mountain. Instead of spending great effort and money to repair it, it's actually better to buy a new ferry. For the new imperial court of the northern Jin dynasty, who wanted to restore the old appearance of a mountain with broken roots and exhausted water transportation, it was a bottomless pit that would cost a lot of money, so it was not a general taste. If you don't change the U, it is a dead rule after all. It is better to Fengchan x Xianyu, it is also a new dynasty. Regarding the site selection of the northern Jin kingdom's Xinyue mountain, not only has it been reported to Dafu Academy, but it has also been approved by the Zhongtu Confucian Temple. This means that the Confucian Temple in this matter is equivalent to opening a hole for the entire Tonghis-Hao countries. Since there is a precedent, the rest of the countries will become polite. It's just that the next sect site is just that big. If it is installed with the 5 sacred mountains of the next country, it will look bloated and overcrowded. As an additional condition for buying the old mountain, because the price is indeed lower, I have to agree to the new gentleman. In the next 100 years, our next ancestor is willing to give priority to accepting the cultivating embryos of the northern Jin kingdom. His Majesty is not very young and has a lot of courage. He is very sophisticated when it comes to buying and selling. He is either a born businessman or a man. The expert taught me tricks and tricks. Anyway, I'm asking for the price to pay back the money. I only promised an additional condition of, within 500 years, at least 3 to 5 disciples of the Patriarch's Hall in the northern Jin dynasty. The exchange, except for the renovation of the old state city in the future of the northern Jin kingdom and the construction of the Xinzhou city, is handed over to our next case. The price is fair and everyone needs what they need. Everyone is happy. In addition, it gave us a century of mining all silver mines in the northern Jin dynasty. Quan, we contribute, the northern Jin dynasty just sits and collects the money. September 1st opens. Hearing this, Qin Pingan finally interrupted. It's too much to divide the accounts like this. If it is the next sect that divides the account by 90%, of course it is too much. If the next sect only accounts for 10%, the northern Jin dynasty is too much. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, the students also want to talk about 2 to 8, but the new king is very shrewd and prepared early. The approximate reserves of the 6 silver mines in the dark and secret mountains have been carefully estimated by the Beijing Household Department. Even if we only occupying 10% of the income is indeed an astronomical sum of money. Sir, I can make a ticket here, and within 20 years of the next transaction, I will be able to open Tonghis' leading silver bank ticket number. Regardless of the silver business in the small mountain, the human race has been living along the river by the water since ancient times, so there is still a road like water and wealth under the sky that is more attractive than gold and silver? Of course Cui Dongshan knew that his husband knew his intentions and plans. When Nailin Yuzhang heard the words silver and divided, it was most easy to get her heart. She hurriedly swallowed dumplings and cheered loudly. The little girl was full of energy and her eyes lighted up. Cui Dongshan turned around, smiling and handing over with this little money fan. The master of the little girl nowadays is the law of the fallen mountain palm, a fellow Lingchun Taoist. Qin Pingan took a sip of the winter tonic soup. After Cui Dongshan took the seat, he continued, I also photographed 2 mountains in the old Nanqi, one old Zhongyue and one old Sieyes Prince's Mountain. They are all pretty enough, just now the chaos there is no better than the northern Jin dynasty, where the lotus roots are broken. The country is broken. The new emperor is a foreigner and has a bad name. He is unworthy of it by a large group of former widows. Undercurrents are surging up and down by the ruling and the opposition. After 5 years of work, I don't want to be safe. Even if I want to take advantage of the fire, I have to worry about whether I will get a yellow mud in my crotch, and I am not a person inside and out. So after thinking about it, I still feel unnecessary and wait for the situation to stabilize. Besides, no matter who the covenant is signed today, it may become a piece of waste paper the next day. The Daquan dynasty bordered the 2 countries, the northern Jin and the southern Qi. The former was at least the continuation of the kingdom of Zhua. The capital of the old southern Qi was reduced to a garrison for a military tent in the barren world in the early years. The monsters occupied and smashed countless golden statues of gods. Therefore, the new monarch enthroned the throne and established a national title. He would rather establish the country as the emperor in a state city and hold a ceremony. He would not go to the old capital to ascend the throne. Pieces together, borrowed a large amount of foreign debts from the Yao family of Daquan, and secretly let out a lot of profits. Only at the end of last year was able to start rebuilding the new capital. If one is not careful, it will become a vassal state of the Yao family of Daquan. Cui Dongshan is not a 5 sacred prince like Wei Bo, nor does he dispose of the mountain in his own jurisdiction, nor does he have the magical powers of the ancestor who moved the mountain. Therefore, the relocation of this old mountain cost Cui Dongshan a lot of energy and financial resources. You have to lay down a large formation to cover the entire mountain range, and then perform the Buddhism mustard seed summoning technique. In the end, it is equivalent to carrying a mountain to the north. Therefore, at least half of the mountain and water journey Cui Dongshan cannot protect against the wind, so he can only walk on foot. Learn from the ancient land immortals, move to rivers and raise mountains. After landing and taking root, let the talisman puppets who pick mountain workers and fish, or repair and suture mountain roots, or travel clouds and rain and gather water transportation in the lower parcel. In the future, the 3 mountains will be moved here, and the next clan will form a ground pattern of 1 main and 2 auxiliary. After a good meal, Cui Dongshan led the way and the group began a hiking tour. Cui Dongshan helped introduce the scenic spots along the way. The predecessor of this mountain is the genus of the 5 sacred mountains. Cannot be just a single mountain but a whole mountain range. Many peaks have been renamed by Cui Dongshan. In addition to rename the old mountain to Shindu Mountain, the ancestral mountain of the next ancestor, named after the main peak, it is Qingping Peak. There is also a Fuyaoping on the top of the mountain. As for the foot of the second peak, there is a river nearby, named Luobayatan by Cui Dongshan. As soon as Xiaomo heard the place named Luobayatan, he was stunned as if he had noticed the strangeness of Xiaomo behind him. The big white goose walking at the forefront threw his sleeves and said with a heartfelt smile, Mr. Xiaomo, don't be too much. Think, and the Bixiao cave of Luobayatan and Stinky Nibizi, the 2 have no way to do it, I'm just trying to please. In the ancient times when the human race and the monster race were mixed in the world, and there were gods in the sky, the Bixiao cave next to the treasure beach was invincible from the cave, and it could forgive people and not forgive people and could not give way to the Tao. At that time, the Taoists of the world, the immortals of the earth, as long as they met that one, they would be a little bit embarrassed. Of course, Xiaomo is an exception, but the 2 sides neither discussed the Tao Fa nor asked the sword. Instead they had a good chat. It was a good match. Xiaomo once went to the treasure beach outside the Bixiao cave to be with the Taoist and Xingyi. Winemaking. Qin Lingjun walked beside the big white goose, his big sleeves dangling and crackling. Mr. Zheng, the nephew of the teacher, said this is called Feilong in Tianyun Yutian. When the thunderstorm is over, there will be a secret roar. Cui Dongshan turned his head, glanced at the old fairy Jia, smiled and asked, Second thing, what about that robe that is very valuable when you look at it? Didn't you turn it out and put it on your body, basking in the sun and moonlight? Old Xinxian Jia replied in a sad voice, Master Cui Xian's teachings are always in my heart, and I often remind myself that it is easy to change from frugality to luxury, and it is difficult to change from extravagance to frugality. Before disembarking the ship, the blind Taoist took off his luxurious robe and put on the simple attire of the contemporary shopkeeper in Qilong Alley. There is a road at the foot of the mountain, and the law of the mountainside is on the mountainside. Don't be too rigid. Since you are the second manager of the Wind and Kite Fairy, You should not be too shabby because you depend on clothes and Buddha and gold. In the future, the old Jia needs to follow people from all walks of life get along with each other, and it is inevitable that they will encounter a few snobs, but don't miss the business because of your clothes. Cui Dongshan had no words to say anything. Hippie smiled and said, the clothes are shabby, you can change the robes, but if the sourness is hard to fade, it will not be beautiful. As a result, Cui Dongshan slapped his husband on the back of the head. Qin Pingan taught, they are all people who are going to be suzerain. Who taught you the yin and yang weirdness? Old immortal Jia hurriedly swallowed his saliva, moisturized his throat, and said in a stern tone, Xianxia sect master Cui said that if you don't treat poor Dao as his own family, why bother to say that these are just unbelievable golden words at first glance? Qin Pingan was silent. Zhongli Changming smiled. Nailan Yu took out a pen and a bamboo slip from his sleeve, and began to record the words. Before the young mountain master went to Qilong Alley to invite the old Jia to go out of the mountain, and after agreeing to be the second ferry manager, Jia Xing personally cooked a table for wine and dishes, and called 2 disciples of Zhao Dengao and Tianjiuer. The old gods broke the world. I didn't speak much, I just toasted a few wines and toasts. Compared with the previous lotus flowers, it seemed very common. It's just that I thanked the mountain master for being willing to accept the 3 masters and apprentices, which gave them a place to stay. I want continue to drift away and thank Luopashan's kindness over the years. I live a stable life without the slightest feeling of being under the fence. It's not like a home, it's just a home. Finally, the old Taoist stood up, held a cup and respected the world, saying that he was grateful to God to open his eyes, so that he was fortunate to be here, and fortunate to meet Qin Shanzhu, and fortunate to meet all of Luopashan. Everyone continued to ascend all the way, but unfortunately the big woods in the mountains had been cut down long ago. The countless magnificent temples and halls were completely destroyed, leaving only a few traces of the foundations. Even those cliff carvings did not escape the catastrophe, or be smoothed out by the magic of the monsters at will. When you arrive at a quiet path that is only a little higher than the mountainside, it is already higher than the bird path. The cliffside viewing pavilion and the waterside pavilion have disappeared, only outside the mountain. White clouds and flying birds passed by slowly. The white-clothed boy picked up a handful of water and laughed. Sir, this water is good for brewing tea. This stream is not flooded with floods and does not dry up in severe droughts. It is one of the few mountainous ones to be taken. It's done. And the further you go, the higher the rank of the stream will be. Qin Pingan smiled and nodded. I can barely count the 2 things of brewing tea. Cui Dongshan leaned his palm and stood up. From now on, I will set up a stone tablet near here and set it up with someone. If I want to seal an immortal poem, I will write. Sir, why don't you come and improvise one? The person Cui Dongshan calls is probably Cui Yang. There are so many people at the moment, he is not good to call the directly. I heard that the young mountain mainly chanted poems. Old immortal Jia shouted aloud and Chen Lingjun immediately followed. Nailan Yu Miao and the little fat man Cheng Chaolu applauded vigorously. Qin Pingan had a dark face. Fortunately the millet grains are not here. Qin Pingan turned his head and looked at Xiaomo. It implies that Xiaomo, you have a rich collection of books in your heart and you can search very quickly. You can do this for you and help you out of the siege. Put together a poem about fairy tales and just expose the matter in one stroke. Xiaomo, who had a slightly subtle smile on his face, mistakenly thought that his son was not enough to support him. He immediately held the hiking stick in his arms, raised his hands and clapped gently to show his expectation. Qin Pingan took the lead in moving and only left a sentence, let's stay ahead. Old immortal Jia smiled while stroking his beard, and whispered to Xiaomo on the side, the mountain lord must be confident. In fact, Qin Pingan already has a draft, but who knows a few nonsense poems. It's just that a kind of master and student Chao Qingqing was present, and Qin Pingan was embarrassed to show his ugliness after all. Xiaomo began to look through the collection of books in his heart, with green words and green chapters of the fairy poems, and nodding his head, the ancient trees are towering over the cloud house, and the total true miracle is the city of immortals. Old immortal Jia thought for a while, nodded and said, Brother Xiaomo, it is quite appropriate to start the chapter with a poem by Ding Yanling. Cui Dongshan hugged the back of his head with both hands, smiled and said, my mountain is 3,000 feet above the ground, and the sky is 10,000 years tall. Approaching the top of the mountain, Cui Dongshan said heartily, Sir, the seating arrangement on the mountain gate just now is different from that of Luopa Mountain. Cui Dongshan's arrangement is in line with Howren's rules, so it doesn't seem to be a downfall. Qin Pingan smiled and said, I promised you a long time ago. You can handle the next affairs by yourself and I won't take care of it. In the falling mountains, there is a group of kindness and a strong atmosphere of humanity. The realm of monks and martial arts is nothing. Naturally, they don't pay much attention to the distinction of primary and secondary seniority and closeness. But Qin Pingan didn't feel that he had to follow the gourd to draw a dipper, do everything and copy everything to the previous sect. Unless one day Qin Pingan feels that something went wrong in the next case, he will make an exception. When he arrived at Fuioping on the top of the mountain, Qin Pingan took out 2 things and gave them to Cui Dongshan. It's considered as a gift I gave in advance. When the time comes, there will be one more for the celebration. A pair of couplets presented by Wu Shuangjiang. The 12 flying swords of the Yuban city of the Yunwan dynasty. The young man in white was in his sleeve and thanked her husband. The cave sky obtained from Tianhuan has not yet landed, and Cui Dongshan still has an interlocking landscape layout. Qin Pingan remembered something and smiled with Cui Dongshan and asked, Julien's swordsmanship is actually very powerful? Because Lao Guanzhu was a guest at Luapa Mountain last time, stopped at the gate of the mountain, just drank tea, chatted with Julien, a hometown man from the blessed land, actively mentioned Julien's swordsmanship, and asked Julien if he could do it. Choose 9 sword fairy embryos as disciples. A great monk in the 14th realm would never talk casually. At that time, Qin Pingan strayed into the depths of the lotus root flowers, only to hear that Julien had 2 nicknames, Madman Wu and Young Master Noble. At most, it was the first time the old chef walked the rivers and lakes. He traveled far away with a sword and once caused a lot of powder. The Cui Dongshan said, Julien's swordsmanship is worthy of the words we're on. It is a master of swordsmanship in the world before Ding Ying of the blessed land. It is like a mountain on the top of a mountain with a peak rising suddenly. Qin Pingan wondered, then why did you never see Julien practicing sword? But every time he watched Xiao Heitan play that crazy sword technique, it was the old cook who was the most vigorous and supportive, and his beard and horses were a bit too much. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, it's probably because the old cook thinks that sword practice is no longer interesting. Qin Pingan sighed, it's really a human being more than a human being. There is Julien far away and the disciple Pei Qian nearby, and now there is another Chai Wu beside him. Cui Dongshan did not stay in this Fuyaoping for long, and soon left, leading the people of the next sect down the mountain to continue to be busy. Now everyone has a clear division of labor and heavy tasks. Cui Dongshan also pulled up the 3 of Liu Beixiang's master and apprentice. All the affairs of the next sect will be done by Cui Dongshan himself, and everything will be done by himself. As Shangzong's Luapa Mountain, it was like just giving a place to the sect. Qin Pingan glanced at the backs of the 3 Liu Beixiang's masters and apprentices. It seemed that from meeting Liu Baixiang at the ferry to now following Liu Baixiang to leave the mountain top, Yuan Bao never looked at Chao Sunny from beginning to end. Then don't have to guess, it must have been said by the ears of millet grains. It's true. It's just this kind of thing what outsiders can do besides knowing but pretending not to know. Qin Pingan looked at a hill near Qingping Peak, as if it had been taken by the right side of Sui, similar to the hilltop of Fuioping, she named Shuawadai. The mountain wind blows through the forest, rustling like a human being. If you don't consider the time spent on berthing, a wind kite ferry, a round trip across continents will take almost a month each time, but during the period it will pass 17 mountain ferry crossings and loading and unloading goods will definitely be delayed, so there will be almost 1 trip a month, 3 trips a year is a full half a year. The intercontinental ferry that used to do business with Jinchi Great Wall back then went back and forth to Upside Down Mountain twice a year. Before Lao Guanzhu left Luapa Mountain, he only made one request and asked Cui Dongshan and Julien to tell Qin Pingan. The survival of Tongyi's Hao Jinding Temple doesn't matter, but xuanhuan must be kept. The implication is that no matter how the Luapa Mountain fights with Jindingwan, it doesn't matter how many people die in the latter, it doesn't matter if the Patriarch's Hall is demolished, but xuanhuan can't move this person, and the true tradition of Jindingwan can't break the incense. The Taoist school of Jinding Temple is extremely obscure, and it can be traced back to the Loguan school of grass building, star watching and qi. Qin Pingan's previous plan with Cui Dongshan was to choose the site for the next clan, occupying the position of Tianquan, as the link between the fighting body and the fighting handle, not only to protect the Taiping Mountain, but also to completely disrupt the Golden Summit view. Second hidden layout. When Cui Dongshan chooses to start a school here, Du Hanliang of Jindingwan will be more or less relieved. But even if the 2 sides become half neighbors in the future, they just don't know if Du Hanliang came to congratulate himself, or send the chief Taoist temple to worship the reed eagle to test the depth. Miyu found Qin Pingan and whispered softly, "His lord hidden officer, I have an immature suggestion." Qin Pingan said in a bad mood, "Immature? Then tell me when you are done." Miyu was crippled. "First there is Kaik Mansion and then Juchai Island. Qin Pingan hasn't settled these two accounts with me Dajian. Bad my demeanor of the mountain." Miyu bit his scalp and said, "I want Xiaomo to serve as the chief consecration of the next sect. I will continue to retain the status of the second seat of Luapa Mountain, stay here to practice as long as it is where I should contribute. I will never be lazy." Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "This matter will not work for the time being. I have an agreement with Xiaomo. You will serve as a dead man by my side for a limited number of years. Today's worship status is a blinding method. When the agreed deadline expires, Xiaomo will there is a real fixed number if you go or stay." Miyu said, "With Xiaomo's temperament and his affinity with Luapashan," Qin Pingan still shook his head and said, "It's such a thing but it's not a reason." Miyu was convinced, "It's no wonder that when I arrive at Chunbanzhai, I can only be the door at the accountant. Miyu has always been the midfielder of Jinshi Great Wall." Qin Pingan added another sentence, "It's still the handle of our summer palace." If Pei Qian had a headache when meeting Guizhuzhou, then Mi de Jianxian had a headache even more when he thought of the clever young sword repairers in the summer palace. Speaking is really detrimental. What kind of swordsmanship is both extremely affectionate, and he has made a remarkable contribution to the sword fairy. What Yupu and Huatsong are the two leaders. Qin Pingan suddenly said, "Did Chief Zhou invite you to the Flower God Mountain in the Cloud Cave Blessed Land? Have you heard of the Rouge picture?" Miyu categorically said, "I have never invited, I have never heard of it." Qin Pingan laughed and said, "That's not what Xiaomili said. Not only did she say that you are good at fighting poems, you have a big literary bowl, but you are also full of confidence. She threatened to be the chief of Zhou's Hua Shinshan Rouge list. Power." Miyu looked helpless and began to play stupid. Mi de Jiangxian walked on his front foot, and Qin Lingjun moved on his back heel. Qin Lingjun said tentatively, "Master, discuss something." Qin Pingan asked with a smile, "Because of his amazing talents and hard work, I am going to break the boundary again? Are you planning to go to the river again?" Qin Lingjun choked for a while. Qin Lingjun was a little selfish of course following the wind and kite fairy to Tonggishao this time, but it was more difficult to tell. Qin Pingan said bluntly, "Don't even think about the protection of the mountain of the next sect. I have already discussed with Dongshan, and I intend to let Hongxia serve as the right protector of the mountain of the next ancestor." Qin Lingjun scratched his head and said he knew. A little bit lost but nothing, a little sad, a drink. For the next sect's protector, in addition to the successful Yuanying realm Hongxia, there is also Pei Xiang, the lord of the Fox country, but the latter is yet to be determined. Qin Pingan reached out and held the Tsingyi boy's head, shook it lightly and smiled. "Whenever you enter the Yupu realm, you will be the left guardian of the Luapa mountain, not the same as the guardian of the mountain? Gwyn are also bigger." Qin Lingjun shook his head, a little dizzy. Qin Pingan said frankly and honestly, "This matter is highly recommended by Xiaomi." Pei Qian seconded his approval, and Wanshu did not object. "Since you are so convinced, I agree to it. Who doesn't know that the Zhulu line of Luapa Mountain is the most favored on the side of the mountain owner, and the words are the most effective?" Qin Lingjun was stunned. No wonder that stupid girl in Wanshu took the initiative to find herself inexplicably not long ago, and said a few silly things to let him practice well, and don't let down the high hopes of his master. Qin Lingjun nodded vigorously, "Master, you put 1,100 hearts, I must break the boundary sooner." Qin Pingan reminded, "The urgent thing is to do it without delay, and the urgent thing is to make you safe and correct." Qin Lingjun grinned, "Let the jade slip on the bamboo slip when you turn around, and put it on the desk of Luapashan as that motto." Dressed in a green shirt with two-handed sleeves, a gentle look, a boy in Tsingyi with arms around his chest, eyebrows flying. This home is under the clan. Chui Dongshan Fairyland. Cultivation of Autumn, the peak martial artist of the remote travel realm. Chui Wei Yuanying realm sword repair. His direct disciple Jian Shuyu slanted back. Chao Qingqing, a trainer in the Longmen realm, is about to become a golden alchemist. The chief enshrines Miyu, the bottleneck sword repair of Yupu realm. This bottleneck is still far from the bottom, and the breakthrough is still in the foreseeable future. It's difficult to get into Yupu, so Miyu would make a joke on the Great Wall of Jinshi. Now it is even more difficult to break the bottleneck of Yupu. Xia Zongzu Shirtang genealogy monk, Sway right, Yuanying realm sword repair. She will join hands with her eldest disciple Qing Chaolu, occupy a mountain top to practice. She personally named it Shuawatai. Yu Xiaohui and Qing Chaolu, the two sword fairy embryos from the Great Wall of Jianqi, are both big disciples of the mountain. Xiao Paxian, a survivor of the old Zhuing dynasty, was born in the Dugu clan of Zhuing, and was an incognito prince, a sword repairer in the Yuanying realm. The reason why the king of Zhongyue Mountain, Jin Qing, respected Luopishan in such an extraordinary manner was that he made concessions with Cui Dongshan and then with Qin Pingan in the matter of his own landscape transaction, which was almost equivalent to giving money to Luopishan. The maid Meng Long watched the sea. He was the son of Montessori, the first-class tycoon of the old Zhuing dynasty Shirqiu, the territory of Dongfu. The two immortals and ghosts living in the Fulu skin are a pair of mountain Taoists who live and die together. They were on the ferry before, dedicated to their duties and taciturn. There are also the three troubled monks from Yezigang Shi Tower. They are temporarily regarded as the guest of the next sect. It is difficult for Yezigang to restore the incense tradition. Today the immortal family of Tonggishao has the same view on the catastrophe of Yezigang's destruction of the sect. It is almost a 8-character conclusion. Open the door and steal and you will take the blame. Therefore none of the 3 old Shuyalu disciples showed up at this gathering today. Qin Pingan didn't ask why. Anyway, the next affairs, no matter how big or small, were handed over to Cui Dongshan. In addition, there is a wind and kite ferry that connects the upper and lower sections. There is a big steward, the ruler in long life, the second steward, Jia Xing, Mr. Zhang Jiazhen the accountant, and the small abacus Nalan Yubiao. Fengyuan ferry boat then continued all the way south, passing Tayedu and Yuguizang of the Dequan dynasty, until the Kashandu at the southernmost tip of Tonggishao. Qin Pingan did not take a ferry to travel far away, but took Xiaoma, Pei Qian and Chao Qingqing to travel south with the wind. Of course, it was not a tour of the mountains and water, otherwise Qin Pingan would not leave Guizhuzhou and Zhao Xuxia and Zhao Luan. Qin Pingan has selfishness and care for this direct disciple, but he must not be partial in his actions. It's just because Chao Qingqing is the definitive choice for the next master of the sect. His next sect is a dragon from Tonggishao that travels southward from Tonggishao. He needs to get a familiar face with some Tonggishao snakes early, and he was the chief of Zhou before. Huang Yiyun, who has promised Yunkatang in Pushan, will bring his disciple Pei Qian to visit the house with his disciple Pei Qian in the future. In addition to the immortal formula for praying for rain, there is also the Yunshui body learned from the Jiozhen Immortal Hall. Before leaving the next sect, Qin Pingan had already taught Chao Qingqing and Zhao Luan, and of course Chai Wu, who likes the least every day. The little girl who drank half a caddy of shochu still let Xiaomo teach it on her behalf, and Qin Pingan really couldn't teach her. Before leaving, Guizhuzhou smiled and asked the elder sister. He didn't want to travel far with him. Pei Qian said of course he would. When Guizhuzhou waved his hand, the master sister assumed me to swim far together. I was lying at home and I could not leave the house, so I went to the rivers and lakes in vain and made a lot of money. What else can Pei Qian do? Can only be speechless. In the case of hanging a statue in the next ancestors' hall, Cui Dongshan said his thoughts on the previous hike, and planned to ask a friend on the mountain in the Middle-earth Shenzhou to help draw a portrait for his husband. He is a pill sage with the same fame as Wu Daoxian, nicknamed Gu Xiaqiu. And these two are respected by the Haoran world as painting saints. Each has its own merits, a fine brushwork for realism, a marvelous awe-inspiring brushstroke, and a wonderful brushwork that gives birth to flowers and expresses the spirit. The former and Bai Yi were born in the same dynasty and were of a similar age. Before he entered the mountain to practice the Taoism, Mr. Wu had long been hailed as, but the age of a weak crown has exhausted the magic of the Danqing. The emperor even specially ordered it, and it must be imperative. The reason for painting turned out to be worry to disperse the air and disturb the spirits and ghosts of a country. The latter's high level of painting skills, especially the finishing touch, was described by Beidasheng Zheng as unlike since the beginning of life. Both of them are good at immortal Buddhas, gods and ghosts, so it would be a great honor to invite a certain Danqing sage to paint murals in the temples and Taoist temples of the Middle-earth Shenzhou. The portrait of Wenxing that hung all over the Temple of Heaven in the early years was made by Mr. Wu. The old scholar was very satisfied back then, but now he is not so satisfied because the Bio Palace in Tonggishao and the Chunshan Academy in Aquarius, during the 2 trips, they were not immediately recognized. It can be seen that the portrait like the real person like the image, but after all, it lacks a little bit of energy that can only be imagined. That's why the old scholar returned to Central Earth Shenzhou this time, specifically to find the painting saint, and patted the old gentleman's shoulder. The old scholar sighed and looked resentful. "Since I'm a friend, I won't say much. After all, it was me back then. If you ask for a portrait, you can't blame anyone, so hurry up, come to a pot of wine, a little bit grudge. Our brothers used it to soak in wine and we just laughed it off." The old man was so angry that he immediately tilted his head, raised his hand and patted his cheek. "Where is this stuff? Where did you go? Was it taken away by someone?" In fact, Chui Dongshan has already sent 2 portraits of his husband to that old man. One is when my husband was on Osmanthus Island when he was young, and the other was when a young hermit was attending Confucian temple discussions. If Gu Lauer dares to scribble, dare not to paint well, not like a god, then don't Chui Dongshan not talk about old friendship. Chui Dongshan has another requirement, that is, his husband must be in the posture of Qingshan carrying a sword. The sky is clear and the sky is clear, among the lofty mountains the mountain wind is surging, the white water is rushing, among the turbulent clouds, above the rolling rivers, headed by a green shirt, swimming in the wind, 2 big sleeves, hunting. Overlooking the earth, mountains and rivers. Occasionally a group of people stopped and took a leisurely walk. A young official who raised the department of Hadao, with an old official uniform and frostbite on his hands, was cursed by an old man with the appearance of a river worker who pointed to the nose and yelled at him. At a banquet of singing and banquet, the melody is flowing, the literati and elegant poets sing together, and there are women who immediately compose the song and sing endlessly. There was a senior official who was subordinate to the Ministry of Industry and Material Evaluation, with a copy of the official document, hurried over, and after turning over and dismounting, he hurried to see the chief official. The concierge refused to let him go, and the officials begged to be useless, and they received a sentence of, "Get away." The servants of the dust had to squat on the side of the road, eagerly looking towards the gate, waiting for the chief to return to the capital after drinking. The chief official who has been born in hairpins for generations, don't get drunk and unconscious today. A place with beautiful scenery, the water is a green ribbon, the mountains are like jade hairpins, the dusk is deep in deep trees, and the slanting sun pulses down the tall buildings. The immortal masters in the mountains are very busy, rebuilding the Patriarch Hall, and also hired a real Taoist man who is proficient in dancing. He painted 5 colorful dragons on the pillars of the new Patriarch Hall. The magnificent weather of fog. Hundreds of miles in the area, we are cutting mountains and quarrying rocks. We are also spending money on shopping with people from the mountains in the surrounding counties and counties. We have dismantled many old official government sites and old wooden beams of abandoned houses. Flowers, plants, antiques and rare cars gathered from all directions to the top of this mountain. Taking advantage of the dispersal of the people from the Patriarch Hall, they took the lead in a green shirt and sneaked into it sneakily. Pei Qian once passed by here and talked a few words with an old fairy who was buying wine and drinking in the city outside the mountain. This hilltop fairy family never left his hometown to go to the colorful world, so many genealogical monks died. Chen Pingon used water law and talisman to add the finishing touch to a black dragon on Liangshan. He wanted to change just like a real person. Put together again, hold down Malong's forehead, and lightly tap it to give a part of the essence of water transport, and then return it to the beams and pillars. In the night. On the top of the undulating mountains, there is a bamboo bed flying across the sky, as big as a pavilion, full of craftsmanship, densely carved and unusually gorgeous. For example, there are 2 groups of subordinate officials from the officialdom of the xianxia officialdom. There are 2 groups of subordinate officials from the background of ghosts, and there are envoys from the Qingdao to clear the way to warn the idlers to retreat in silence on both sides. After that, there are still 2 rows of peacocks erected high for drivers. Ling barrier fans and big umbrellas, flags. In front of the road, a few figures stopped abruptly, drawn a slight arc, and landed on the top of a mountain beyond the route. A woman rolled up a book and raised the curtain with the book. She frowned slightly and looked down at the hill not far away. The trainer from the outside world looked at the face and he was not like an ordinary cultivator. After hesitating, she still didn't plan to sprout branches, put down the curtain, and told Hu Tsong that it was right to continue on the road. Xiao Mo saw the book in the hands of the goddess of the mountain gods and smiled. It is the 24-flower letter wind seal from a certain grand guest of the 100 Flowers land, according to a Shanshui mansion newspaper in Changchun Palace. The immortal Yinpu of the sword with the sun is on the list, but the ranking is far lower than that of the sun. Qin Pingon was confused. What list? Xiao Mo explained. It's a freshly published appraisal from a fairy mansion in Aizhou. The best printed scores in the last 1,000 years have been selected. The master's Jianxian scores are ranked 3rd, and it seems that there are also 10 printed scores. It's published and it sells very well up and down the mountain. Pei Qian whispered, "It's really not authentic to do things. In the future, if master travels to Aiezhou, he will have to come to the door and ask for an account." Qin Pingan laughed off. Now that he stopped here, Qin Pingan simply pulled the 3 Xiaomo to start a fire and cook together. Chao Sunny asked, "Mister, have you thought about the name of the next sect?" Qin Pingan nodded and said, "Yes, Dongshan came up with it. It's great." Among the group, only Chao Sunny did not drink. Even if Qin Pingan moved out of her husband's shelf, it still didn't work. Very good, worthy of being his proud student and his own opinion. Looking at Pei Chen again, the amount of alcohol is good and also very good. Several times the rivers and lakes have not been in vain. Because Chao Qingqing didn't drink, Qin Pingan naturally remembered Lu Wudi, the wine table of Taihui Jinzhou. He had to fly his sword and spread the letter immediately. He had to remind Lu Jinglong to be at the Dali capital on the way to the next festival. Stopped and helped Han Zhoujin, the array master of the earthly branch, to help point out the array. As for Han Zhujin's side, fortunately he had already said hello. I believe that when Lu Jinglong arrives at the Xianxia Inn, he will definitely be able to leave without drunk or return. Lu Jinglong, it seems that my friend is inferior to yours. With the moon hanging on the horizon and the mountain breeze, Qin Pingan was holding a wine bowl, looking up at the bright moon, bowed his head and looked up again and drank a bowl of wine. He has already thought about how to provide water for the stream in the mountains in his own fairy capital. Known as the reunion moon in the sky, the second spring on earth. As for the first and third springs, I don't know who you love, just fight for it. Pei Qian asked, "Master, what's the name of the next sect?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Let me sell it and I will tell you later." The name of the next sect, Chui Dongshan, before leaving Fuyaoping, said in his heart that he suggested that he should be named Qingping Jianzhou. However, Chui Dongshan didn't forget to add a sentence, "The husband's name must be better, just as a student." Qin Pingan thought it was very good, it was already the best, and he did not hesitate to abandon his spare names. The swordsman is drunk in the country, the Taoist heart is big and the world is small, the universe is narrow and the wine cup is wide, ancient and modern, short-tempered and long-tempered. Only I smiled and caressed Qingping with a 3-foot sword in his hand, and never lost his life. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.